The text message from my sister Michelle felt like a slap across the face. Since you're too selfish to help anymore, don't bother coming to Sunday dinner. Mom and Dad agree. I'm Celeste, and until 3 days ago, I was my family's personal ATM. The screen of my phone blurred as tears welled up, but I refused to let them fall. 6 years of paying for everything, from Dad's golf club membership to Jackson's temporary apartment support that somehow never ended, and this was my reward for finally saying no. You can't just cut them off cold turkey, Eliza had warned me last week over coffee. My mentor's words echoed in my head as I paced my apartment. Family dynamics like this are like addiction. They won't take kindly to losing their supply. I should have listened. Instead, I'd chosen the worst possible moment to stand my ground, right when Mum was planning her annual summer cruise. What do you mean you won't help with the cruise? Mom had demanded during our last family dinner. You always contribute. It's tradition. I can't keep doing this, I'd replied, my voice shakier than I'd intended. I've put my entire life on hold. My savings are depleted. I need to focus on my startup. Dad's fork had clattered against his plate. That ridiculous tech thing again. When are you going to grow up and get a real job? My job is real, I'd shot back. I've just been too busy bankrolling everyone else's dreams to pursue my own. The silence that followed was deafening. Michelle's eyes had narrowed, while Jackson barely looked up from his phone. Mom's lip quivered, her tell when she's about to deploy emotional warfare. After everything we've done for you, she'd whispered. This is how you repay us? I'd laughed then, a harsh, bitter sound that surprised even me. Everything you've done? Like what, exactly? Taking my bonus checks as family contributions? Guilting me into paying Jackson's rent? Or maybe you mean pushing me to take that soul-crushing corporate job instead of supporting my dreams? We only wanted what's best for you, Dad had insisted. No, I'd replied, standing up. You wanted what was best for your bank account. Now, 3 days later, the group chat was blowing up with vacation plans they somehow could still afford. Each notification felt like a tiny needle under my skin. How were they funding this without me? My phone buzzed again. Eliza this time. Coming to the investor meeting tomorrow? I texted back immediately. Wouldn't miss it. Tech Phoenix is all I have now. That's not true, she replied. You have yourself. Sometimes that's worth more than family. I walked to my home office, where my prototype sat on the desk. 6 months of work, countless sleepless nights, and every spare dollar I hadn't given to my family, all poured into this device that could revolutionize home automation. My fingers traced the smooth surface of the casing. The doorbell rang, startling me. Through the peephole, I saw Michelle, and my stomach clenched. I opened the door a crack, security chain still in place. What do you want? She held up a manila envelope. Your portion of Mom and Dad's anniversary gift. We're all contributing, remember? I thought I was uninvited from family events, I said coldly. Don't be dramatic. Just give me your share. 2,000 should cover it. The audacity struck me speechless for a moment. Are you serious? After that text you sent? Oh, grow up, she scoffed. You're acting like we're asking for a kidney. It's just money. Just money, I repeated. Like the just money I spent putting Jackson through his 3rd attempt at college? Or the just money that paid off Dad's gambling debt last year? Michelle's face hardened. We're family. We help each other. Funny how that help only flows one way. I closed the door, but not before catching her shocked expression. My phone started ringing immediately. I blocked her number, then Dad's, then Mum's. With each block, my hands shook less. Finally, I blocked Jackson too. Walking back to my office, I caught my reflection in the window. I barely recognized myself. This woman with steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. For the first time in years, I felt light, unburdened. I picked up my prototype again, running through the presentation in my head. Tomorrow, I'd stand in front of potential investors and show them something revolutionary. No family drama would hold me back. But one question nagged at me as I settled in to work. How were they affording that cruise without my money? Something didn't add up, and I had a sinking feeling I was missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. 3 weeks into my self-imposed family exile, I was actually thriving. My apartment felt different, peaceful, like I could finally breathe. No more midnight calls about emergencies that always ended with me transferring money. "Your energy is completely different," Eliza remarked as we reviewed Tech Phoenix's progress in her downtown office. "You're focused, sharp." The investors noticed. I couldn't help but smile. The prototype demonstration had gone better than I'd dared hope. 3 committed investors and counting. I still can't believe it. "Believe it," she said, sliding a contract across her desk. "And speaking of believers, Cyrus Hill wants to meet you." My heart skipped. "Cyrus Hill? The Smart Home Solutions CEO?" "The very same. He saw your presentation video. Says he has a proposition for you." I leaned back, suspicious. My device would basically make his current product line obsolete. Why would he want to meet? "Find out," Eliza winked. "Dinner tomorrow at Laurent's. I'll send you the details." Later that evening, I was deep in code reviews when my laptop pinged with a social media notification. I nearly ignored it until I saw Michelle's name tagged in a photo album. Mediterranean Dreams. My fingers moved before my brain could stop them. There they were, my entire family, lounging on a luxury cruise ship. Mom in her designer sunglasses, Dad with his expensive cigars, Jackson parasailing, and Michelle looking surprisingly comfortable for someone who'd claimed last year she could barely afford her rent. I zoomed in on the photos, my tech background kicking in. The metadata showed they were taken just days ago. The cruise line was one of the most expensive in Europe. A quick search showed cabin prices starting at $12,000 per person. "How?" I whispered to my empty apartment. "How are they affording this?" My phone rang, displaying an unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something made me answer. "Is this Celeste?" a familiar voice asked. "It's Cyrus Hill. Hope you don't mind me calling directly." I straightened instinctively. "Not at all. I was just reading about our dinner tomorrow." "About that, I'm actually in your building's lobby right now. Any chance you'd be up for an impromptu meeting?" 10 minutes later, I was face to face with one of tech's most notorious CEOs. Cyrus Hill was younger than his photos suggested, with keen eyes that seemed to notice everything. "Impressive setup," he said, gesturing to my home office. "But your prototype is even more impressive. Mind if I take a look?" I handed him the device, watching as he turned it over in his hands. "It's going to disrupt the entire industry," he said finally, "including my company." "That's the plan," he smiled. "Which is why I want to buy it. Name your price. It's not for sale." "Everyone has a price, Celeste. Shall we start at 20 million? I almost choked. That kind of money would set me up for life. Would ensure I never had to worry about family demands again. Would... "No," I said firmly. "This is my vision, my future. It's not about the money." Cyrus set the prototype down carefully. "Interesting. Your sister said you might be difficult to convince." The room seemed to tilt. "My sister?" "Michelle. She approached us last month trying to broker a deal. Said she could convince you to sell." He studied my face. "I'm guessing she didn't mention this?" Suddenly everything clicked. The cruise, the sudden cash flow, Michelle's comfortable lifestyle. She'd been playing both sides, probably taking finder's fees from companies interested in my work. "Thank you for your offer," I said, my voice steady, despite the rage building inside me. "But my answer is still no, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't discuss my business with my sister anymore." After Cyrus left, I sat in the dark, staring at the cruise photos again. All those years of guilt trips about family loyalty, and Michelle had been secretly profiting from my work. The same work our parents had dismissed as a ridiculous tech thing. My phone lit up with a text from Eliza. "How'd it go with Cyrus?" I typed back. "He made an offer." I declined, but I found out something interesting about Michelle. "Tell me tomorrow," she replied. "Over drinks. Sounds like you need them." I looked at my prototype, thinking about Michelle's betrayal, about my family living it up on blood money they'd squeezed from my dreams. The hurt was there, but something else too. A cold, clear purpose. They wanted to play games, fine. But they'd forgotten one crucial detail. I wasn't just the family ATM anymore. I was a tech founder on the rise, with resources and connections of my own. Time to show them exactly what their ridiculous tech thing could do. "You're telling me Michelle approached every major tech company in the valley?" Eliza's martini glass froze halfway to her lips. "That's not just betrayal, that's corporate espionage." We were at our usual spot, a quiet bar overlooking the city. I'd spent the last hour laying out everything I'd discovered since Cyrus's visit. "5 companies so far," I confirmed, sliding my phone across the table. "Look at these emails." My old college friend Marcus, now working at a rival tech firm, had come through with the intel. Emails, meeting schedules, proposed deals, all with Michelle's name attached. "She's been shopping your technology around for months," Eliza muttered, scrolling through the evidence. "Taking finder's fees, promising inside information. Does she even understand how illegal this is?" "Oh, it gets better." I pulled up the cruise ship photos. "See that guy with Dad? The one in the blue shirt?" Eliza squinted. "Wait, isn't that Robert Torres, VP of Development at Smart Home Solutions? Michelle arranged the whole cruise, a chance meeting with potential buyers for my tech. Your own sister pimping out your intellectual property while on a luxury vacation." Eliza shook her head. "That's a special kind of betrayal." My phone buzzed, a text from Jackson. "Hey sis, you're being ridiculous. Call Mom and Dad. They're worried." "Worried about their cash flow, maybe," I muttered, showing Eliza the message. "What's your play here?" she asked. "We have enough evidence to take legal action." Before I could answer, a familiar voice cut through the bar's ambient noise. "Celeste? Oh my God, it is you!" Michelle stood there, designer handbag on one arm, perfect tan highlighting her recently returned from cruise glow. The absolute audacity of her showing up here, acting normal, made my blood boil. "Funny running into you here," she said, sliding uninvited into our booth. "I've been trying to reach you for weeks. You'll never believe the opportunities I've found for your little project." Eliza's eyebrows shot up at little project, but I held up a hand to stop her intervention. "Really?" I kept my voice neutral. "Like the opportunity you discussed with Cyrus Hill?" Michelle's smile flickered for just a second. "Oh, you met with him?" "I was going to tell you about that. I've been networking, trying to help you out." "Help me out?" I pulled up the emails on my phone. "By shopping my intellectual property to every tech company in Silicon Valley? By arranging secret meetings with executives on family cruises?" The color drained from her face. "How did you—" "No. Unlike you, I actually understand the tech industry. Did you think I wouldn't find out?" "I was doing you a favor," she hissed, dropping the friendly act. "Do you know how much money you're leaving on the table with your stupid pride? 20 million from Cyrus alone." "Money that you'd get a percentage of, right?" I leaned forward. "Just like the finder's fees you've been collecting?" "We're family," she spat. "Everything I did was for the family." "No," I stood up. my voice carrying enough that nearby tables turned to look. Everything you did was for yourself. You used me for years, took my money, dismissed my work. Then when you realized my little project might be worth something, you tried to sell it behind my back. Keep your voice down, she glanced around nervously. Why? Worried someone might overhear how you committed corporate espionage? How you betrayed your own sister for a cruise ship vacation? You don't understand, Michelle's voice cracked. Mom and Dad needed… Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I understand perfectly. You found a new way to profit off me, and it backfired. But here's what's going to happen now. You're going to tell Mom and Dad the truth about where the cruise money came from. All of it. Or what? Eliza cleared her throat. Or we take this evidence to the companies you've been stringing along. I'm sure their legal departments would be very interested. Michelle's face contorted with rage. You wouldn't dare! We're family! Family? I laughed. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. I grabbed my coat, leaving Michelle sitting there with her perfect tan and her designer bag and her web of lies crumbling around her. 1 week, I called over my shoulder. Tell them or I will. And Michelle, stay away from my company. Outside, the cool night air helped calm my shaking hands. Eliza caught up with me at the corner. You okay? I looked up at the city lights, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. You know what? I really am. For the first time, I'm seeing them all clearly, and I'm done being their puppet. So what's next? I smiled, thinking of the prototype waiting in my office. Now we build something they can't steal or sell, something that'll make them realize exactly what they threw away. The next month passed in a blur of investor meetings, code sprints, and sleepless nights. My team had grown from just me to 15 people, each as driven as I was. The prototype was evolving into something beyond even my original vision. The neural learning capabilities are off the charts, David, my lead developer, announced during our morning stand-up. It's not just automating homes anymore. It's predicting needs before users even know they have them. I was about to respond when my office door burst open. Cyrus Hill strode in, looking decidedly less friendly than during our last meeting. We need to talk, he said, dismissing my team with a wave. Your sister's been feeding us false information. I couldn't help but laugh. Finally figured that out, did you? This isn't funny. We made business decisions based on her intel. He ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely distressed. She said you were struggling, that a buyout was inevitable. And you believed her, because it was convenient. I leaned back in my chair. How's that working out for you? Look, he sat down heavily. I was wrong to approach you through her. But I'm here now, being straight with you. Your tech is revolutionary. We should be working together, not against each other. Why? So you can bury my innovation to protect your existing product line? No. He pulled out his tablet, sliding it across my desk. So we can change the industry together. Look at this. I glanced at the screen and felt my breath catch. It was a partnership proposal, complete with development resources and distribution networks that would take years to build on my own. Full creative control stays with you, he continued. We provide the infrastructure. You provide the innovation. Equal partners. And Michelle? Never darkens either of our doors again, he smiled grimly. I've already blacklisted her from every tech company I have connections with. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Mum. Your sister is crying. How could you ruin her relationships with her business contacts? Call me immediately. I showed the message to Cyrus, who actually snorted. Amazing how you're the bad guy for exposing her scam. Story of my life. I gestured to his tablet. Give me a week to review this with my team. After he left, I called Eliza. A partnership? She sounded skeptical. Can you trust him? Probably not, but his resources could fast-track everything we're working on. True, but remember, you don't need him. The latest investor reports just came in. You're already exceeding all projections. She was right. Tech Phoenix was growing faster than anyone had anticipated. 3 major retailers were fighting for exclusive distribution rights. Our waitlist for beta testing had crashed the servers twice. My desk phone lit up. The front desk. Ms. Gonzalez, your father is here. My heart stuttered. Send him up. Dad looked older than I remembered, more worn. He stood awkwardly in my office doorway, taking in the space with wide eyes. This is impressive, he said finally. Very different from that garage setup you had. Things change. I didn't offer him a seat. What do you want? Your mother's worried. Michelle's devastated. Whatever business disagreement you're having. Business disagreement? I pulled up the emails on my monitor, turning it toward him. She tried to sell my company's intellectual property without my knowledge. She took money from tech companies, promising them inside information. That's not a disagreement. It's fraud. He squinted at the screen, face reddening as he read. There must be some mistake. The only mistake was thinking she could get away with it, or that you'd actually take my side for once. Don't be dramatic. We're just trying to help you succeed. No! I stood up, anger finally boiling over. You're trying to profit from my success while doing everything possible to prevent it. Where was this concern when I was working 80-hour weeks to fund your lifestyle? When was the last time you actually asked about my work, instead of dismissing it? I don't... Exactly. You don't know, because you never cared as long as the money kept flowing. I walked to the door, holding it open. Tell Mom I'm fine. Tell Michelle her tech career is over. And Dad, don't come to my office again. After he left, I stood at my window, watching him disappear into the street below. My phone buzzed with another text from Mom, but I ignored it. Instead, I pulled up Cyrus's proposal again. Maybe it was time to show my family exactly what they'd underestimated. Not just a successful startup, but an industry-changing partnership that would make their cruise ship luxuries look like pocket change. Let them see what their ridiculous tech thing could become when they weren't holding me back. The invitation arrived on expensive cream-colored paper, my mother's flowing handwriting instantly recognizable. Annual family reunion. Because family always comes first. The nerve, Eliza said, examining the invitation in my office 2 days before the event. After everything they've done, they're playing the family card? I picked up the handwritten note that had accompanied the invitation. Listen to this. Darling, we've all made mistakes. It's time to put this unfortunate business behind us. The family needs to present a united front, especially now that your little company is getting attention. Little company? Eliza scoffed. You just signed a multi-million-dollar partnership with Cyrus Hill. Tech Phoenix is the talk of Silicon Valley. Which is exactly why they want me there. I tossed the note aside. They've realized they cut off their golden goose too soon. My phone buzzed, speaking of Cyrus. The press release goes live tomorrow morning, he said when I answered. Ready to shake up the industry? More than ready. Though my family's timing is interesting. Ah, yes, the reunion invitation Michelle mentioned. I sat up straighter. You're still in contact with her? She keeps trying. Sent me a long email about how attending this reunion could open new doors for our partnership. He chuckled. She doesn't know about tomorrow's announcement, does she? No one in my family does. I glanced at the invitation again. They're in for a surprise. After hanging up, I pulled up the latest company valuation on my laptop. The numbers still seemed surreal. We'd grown exponentially since partnering with Cyrus. Our technology was being called revolutionary, a game changer in home automation. You should go, Eliza said suddenly. What? To the reunion. Show them exactly what they threw away. She grinned wickedly. Besides, I'd pay good money to see their faces when the announcement hits the news. My brother Jackson's latest Instagram post popped up on my feed. Him posing with his new sports car. The caption read, "Family success is shared success." You know what? I closed my laptop. You're right. It's time they saw the real cost of their actions. The next morning, I stood in front of my closet, deliberating. The press release would go live at 9 a.m., right in the middle of the reunion brunch. My phone was already buzzing with preview notifications from tech blogs. Tech Phoenix and Smart Home Solutions announce revolutionary partnership. I chose a simple black dress that probably cost more than Mom's monthly shopping budget. Professional, powerful, perfect. The drive to my parents' house felt surreal. Same tree-lined street, same manicured lawns, but everything looked smaller somehow, less intimidating. Michelle's car was already in the driveway, along with several others I didn't recognize. Through the window, I could see people milling around, drinking mimosas and pretending everything was fine. Well, well, a voice called as I walked up the path. Look who decided to grace us with her presence. Jackson stood on the porch, new Rolex glinting in the sun. Nice dress. Things must be going well at your startup. You could say that. I smiled, checking my watch. 15 minutes until the announcement. Inside, the atmosphere shifted as I entered. Conversations stuttered, eyes darted away. Mom broke away from her gossip circle, arms outstretched. Darling, we weren't sure you'd come. Wouldn't miss it, I said, accepting her air kiss. Especially today. Michelle hovered nearby, looking uncertain. Celeste, can we talk? About the business situation? Actually, I raised my voice slightly. Let's talk about business. Isn't that what this reunion is really about? The room went quiet. Dad appeared from his study, frowning. What do you mean? Mom asked, her smile faltering. Come on. I gestured around the room. The sudden invitation? The timing? You all finally realize my little company isn't so little anymore. Now, sweetheart, Dad started. My phone buzzed. 9 a.m., right on schedule. Check your phones, I said calmly. The news should be breaking now. Confused looks turned to shocked gasps as notifications started pinging around the room. Michelle's face went pale as she read her screen. $1 billion partnership? Jackson choked on his mimosa. With Cyrus Hill? The same Cyrus Hill you tried to manipulate, I said to Michelle. Funny how things work out. Mom grabbed the nearest phone, eyes widening. But this means... It means, I cut in, that the daughter you dismissed, the sister you betrayed, and the company you ridiculed just changed the tech industry forever. I raised my glass. To family success. Isn't that what we're celebrating? The silence was deafening. Through the window, I could see reporters already gathering at the end of the driveway. Now, I smiled, shall we discuss what real family support looks like? Because I have some thoughts on that. The reunion devolved into chaos within minutes of the announcement. Mom's carefully planned brunch lay forgotten as relatives huddled around phones and tablets, whispering and shooting glances my way. $1 billion, Jackson kept muttering, refreshing his newsfeed obsessively. My sister is worth $1 billion. Michelle paced the living room, phone pressed to her ear. Robert, please pick up. I can explain everything. He won't answer, I said, sipping my mimosa. None of your tech contacts will. Funny how quickly doors close when you're exposed as a fraud. You did this on purpose, she hissed, rounding on me. You waited until the reunion to humiliate us. Humiliate you? I stood up, my voice carrying across the room. Like you humiliated me? Selling information about my company? Manipulating Cyrus? Using my work to fund your luxury lifestyle? Dad stepped between us. Girls, please, we can discuss this privately. No, I cut him off. No more private discussions. No more secrets. I addressed the room at large. You want to know what really happened? Why I stopped funding everyone's dreams? Aunt Sarah leaned forward eagerly. Uncle Pete pretended to check his phone while obviously listening. Even Jackson looked up from his endless news scrolling. For 6 years, I continued, I paid for everything. College funds, vacations, debt coverage. I put my life on hold because family comes first. But when I needed support for my company, when I asked for just a little space to build something of my own, we were trying to protect you, Mom interjected. The tech industry is so unstable. Protect me? I laughed. You cut me off completely. Uninvited me from family events. Let Michelle shop my intellectual property around like it was hers to sell. I was trying to help, Michelle shouted. Those connections could have made you rich. I made myself rich, I shot back. Without selling out, without betraying anyone's trust. And now you all want back in? The doorbell rang. Reporters, no doubt. Dad hurried to close the curtains. What do you want from us? He asked quietly. Money? Public apologies? I want you to understand what you threw away. I pulled up the company profile on my phone, projecting it onto the living room TV. This is Tech Phoenix. Not just home automation anymore. We're revolutionizing how people live. And I did it despite you. Not because of you. Photos flashed across the screen. Our offices, our team, our technology. Headlines praising our innovation. Market projections that made Jackson's sports car look like pocket change. The daughter you dismissed as unrealistic. She just changed the industry. The sister you tried to manipulate. She's now your competitor's partner. The family ATM you took for granted. She doesn't need your approval anymore. Mom sank into her favorite armchair, looking shell-shocked. But we're family. Family supports each other, I said softly. Family celebrates success instead of trying to profit from it. Family doesn't treat love like a transaction. More reporters arrived outside. Michelle's phone kept buzzing with messages she was too afraid to read. Jackson stared at his Rolex like it suddenly felt cheap. Miss Gonzalez, a voice called from the doorway. My assistant Julia stood there, tablet in hand. Sorry to interrupt, but Cyrus needs you for the virtual press conference in 20 minutes. Thank you, Julia. I gathered my things, feeling lighter than I had in years. Mom, Dad, thank you for the invitation. It's been illuminating. You're leaving? Mom's voice cracked. But we haven't even had brunch. I have a company to run. I paused at the door. Oh, and Michelle? Those tech contacts you're trying to reach? Don't bother. They've all signed non-disclosure agreements with Tech Phoenix now. The color drained from her face as the implications sank in. Outside, reporters surged forward, but Julia had already cleared a path to my car. Through the window, I could see my family watching. Mom crying, Dad looking lost, Michelle frozen in place, Jackson still staring at his watch. My phone buzzed with a text from Eliza. How'd it go? Exactly as expected, I replied. They finally saw me. And? I looked back at the house one last time, remembering all the Sunday dinners, all the guilt trips, all the manipulations. Then I thought about my team waiting at the office, about the partnership with Cyrus, about the future we were building. And I finally saw them too, I texted back. Clearly, for the first time, as my driver pulled away, reporters jogging alongside the car, I felt no satisfaction in their shock or pain. Just relief. Relief that I'd finally broken free. Relief that I'd shown them exactly what they'd lost. The family ATM was closed. The real Celeste was just getting started. The weeks following the reunion were a whirlwind of press conferences, product launches, and damage control. My family's attempts to contact me grew increasingly desperate as the reality of their situation sank in. "Your mother's called 6 times today," Julia reported, handing me my morning coffee. "And Michelle sent another email about clearing up misunderstandings." "Delete it," I said, focusing on the presentation slides for our international launch. "Any word from Jackson?" "Actually, yes." Julia hesitated. "He's downstairs. Says he won't leave until you see him." I sighed, checking the time. 5 minutes. That's all he gets. Jackson looked different when security escorted him in, humbler, somehow. The designer clothes and flashy watch were gone, replaced by a simple button-down and jeans. "Nice office," he said, hovering by the door. "Very executive." "What do you want, Jackson?" He shifted uncomfortably. "I lost my job. The car, too. Turns out my lifestyle wasn't as sustainable as I thought without—" He trailed off. "Without my money," I finished. "That's why you're here? Another bailout?" "No!" He ran a hand through his hair. "Well, maybe. But not just that. I've been thinking about what you said at the reunion, about support and family, and I want to work for you." I actually laughed out loud. "You want to work for my ridiculous tech thing? I know I don't deserve it. I know I was awful, but I'm good with people, Celeste. I could help with sales, marketing, anything. Just give me a chance to prove I can earn my own way." Before I could respond, my office door burst open. Michelle stormed in, followed by flustered security guards. "I'm sorry, Ms. Gonzalez," one guard panted. "She just ran past us." "How dare you blacklist me from the entire industry?" Michelle's face was red with fury. "I built those relationships." "By selling information that wasn't yours to sell," I replied calmly. "Those relationships were built on fraud." "It was business. I saw an opportunity and I took it." "The opportunity to betray your sister?" Jackson interrupted. "To sell her out for finder's fees?" Michelle whirled on him. "Oh, look who's taking the moral high ground. Mr. I need another loan for my startup while blowing money at clubs." "At least I'm trying to change," Jackson shot back. "You're still trying to justify what you did." "Enough." I stood up. "Security, please remove my sister. And Jackson." I paused, studying his face. "Come back tomorrow. Entry-level position, minimum wage, no special treatment. You want to prove yourself? Start at the bottom." Michelle fought the guards as they led her out. "You can't do this. We're family." "No," I called after her. "Family doesn't exploit each other. Family doesn't sell each other out. You taught me that." After they left, I sat heavily in my chair. Julia appeared with fresh coffee and an understanding smile. "Your father's here too," she said gently. "In the lobby." "Of course he is," I rubbed my temples. "Send him up." Dad looked older than ever, his shoulders hunched under his worn jacket. "The house is being foreclosed," he said without preamble. "Your mother's devastated." "And you came to me because I was wrong." His voice cracked. "About everything. Your company, your dreams, how we treated you. I watched that press conference yesterday, saw how you handled those investors, how you explained the technology. You're incredible, Celeste. And it only took losing everything for you to see that. I deserve that." He nodded. "We all do. But your mother and we're not asking for money this time. Just, can we start over? Try to be a real family?" My phone buzzed. Cyrus, probably about the Tokyo launch. On my screens, market tickers showed Tech Phoenix stock soaring. Outside my window, The city sprawled vast and full of possibility. You know what real family looks like, Dad? Jackson came here asking for a job, entry level, minimum wage. He's willing to work his way up. That's a start. And your mother and I? I thought about all the Sunday dinners, all the guilt trips, all the dismissive comments about my dreams. Then I thought about second chances, about growth, about the possibility of something better. There's a customer service position open, I said finally. Mom's good with people, and our maintenance team needs experienced hands. Think you can handle actual work, Dad? His eyes welled up. You'd give us a chance? After everything? Not a chance at my money, I clarified. A chance to be part of something real, to build actual relationships, not transactions. That's what family should be. He nodded, understanding finally dawning in his eyes. When can we start? Tomorrow, I said, turning back to my work. Don't be late. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee and fresh pastries through the open doors of Tech Phoenix's rooftop garden. Dad wiped down tables with practiced efficiency, while Mom arranged flowers for the morning's executive meeting. Morning, Miss Gonzalez, Dad said formally, then caught himself and smiled. Morning, Celeste. 6 months of honest work had changed them both. Mum's designer clothes were replaced by practical business wear. Dad's entitled attitude transformed into quiet competence. They'd moved into a modest apartment, learned to live within their means. The Tokyo numbers just came in, I said, showing them my tablet. We're exceeding projections by 30%. That's wonderful, honey. Mom's enthusiasm was genuine this time, not calculated. I heard some customers talking about the new features yesterday. They love how intuitive everything is. Jackson burst through the door, tie slightly askew. Sorry I'm late. The sales team meeting ran over, but you won't believe the contracts we just landed. I couldn't help but smile. He'd surprised everyone, working his way up from basic data entry to leading his own sales team. Earned it too. No special treatment. Ms. Gonzalez, Julia appeared. Michelle's downstairs, again. The smile faded from Mum's face. Michelle had spent months alternating between threats and pleading, unable to accept her new reality. Send her up, I said. It's time to end this. Michelle looked expensive but tired, her perfect appearance showing cracks around the edges. She took in the scene, our parents in their work clothes, Jackson in his sales attire, me in the middle of it all. So this is what you've reduced them to, she sneered. Manual labor and customer service. Are you happy now? Actually, Dad stepped forward. We are. For the first time, we're earning our way, building something real. Real? Michelle laughed. Look at you. Dad, you used to run a company. I ran it into the ground, he corrected. Living beyond our means, taking advantage of your sister. This? He gestured around. This is honest work. This is dignity. We were wrong, Michelle, Mom added softly. About everything. About Celeste. About what family means. Oh, spare me the moral awakening. Michelle pulled out her phone. I came to show you this. My new job offer. A tech company in Singapore. They don't care about your blacklist there. I took the phone, read the offer, and handed it back. This company is one of our subsidiaries. The offer's already been rescinded. The color drained from her face. You can't just control everything. I don't want to control anything, I said quietly. I want you to understand what you did, what we all lost because of greed and manipulation. Lost? She gestured wildly. Look at what you've gained. Your precious company, your success. No, I cut her off. We lost years of real connection. We lost trust. We lost the chance to celebrate each other's genuine successes instead of trying to profit from them. Jackson stepped closer. There's a customer service position open on my team, entry level, like I started. If you want to rebuild, really rebuild, You want me to work for you? Michelle's voice rose hysterically. My younger siblings? We want you to work with us, I corrected. To earn trust back. To be family instead of opportunists. I'd rather, she started, but Mom cut her off. Think carefully, Michelle. Look where pride and greed got us. Look what we almost lost forever. She touched Michelle's arm gently. Your sister's offering a chance at redemption. Real redemption, not another scheme. Michelle's shoulders sagged, the fight finally draining out of her. Entry level? She whispered. Entry level, I confirmed. No shortcuts, no special treatment. Just honest work and slow-built trust. She nodded slowly, tears finally breaking through her perfect makeup. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm so sorry for everything. I know. I handed her a tissue. That's step 1. The morning sun broke through the clouds, illuminating our little group on the rooftop. Not a perfect family, not a fairy tale ending, but something real. Something earned. Julia, I called. Get HR to process a new hire packet, and maybe order some extra pastries for the morning meeting. Family breakfast? Jackson grinned. Team breakfast, I corrected. But I was smiling too. We've all got work to do. Michelle dabbed her eyes, straightened her shoulders, and picked up a cleaning cloth. Sometimes the biggest victories don't come from revenge or success, but from watching pride give way to humility, seeing transactions transform into real connections. Sometimes they come from building something new from the ashes of what was lost. Well, Michelle said softly, starting to wipe down a table, I guess this is step 2.
My parents thought it would be hilarious if I missed my flight home. Let's see what she can do. Hi, my name is Kala, and my family. They decided my life was nothing more than a joke. It started with a lie, one that left me stranded, alone, at an airport, waiting for a flight that wasn't even real. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but then I saw the messages. Laughing at me, mocking me. They didn't forget me. They wanted to leave me behind. But the worst part? That was just the beginning. They stole from me, manipulated me, used my name to take out loans I never agreed to. And when I finally cut them off, when I refused to be their safety net, they tried to ruin me. Public humiliation, lies, threats. They did everything they could to make sure I failed without them. And for a while, I believed them. The airport buzzed with life. Loudspeaker announcements, hurried footsteps, distant laughter. But I stood still, my duffel bag slipping from my grip as I reread the flight confirmation for the 3rd time. Yesterday. The ticket was booked for yesterday. A cold weight settled in my stomach. I scrambled for my phone, my fingers clumsy as I dialed my father's number. The call rang, once, twice, voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. My chest tightened. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scrolled through my messages, hoping, praying for some kind of explanation. And then my phone buzzed. Ronan! Damn, sis! Looks like you're stuck. Let's see how you survive now. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't a mistake. It was a joke, a cruel, twisted game orchestrated by my own family. I forced my feet to move, scanning the crowd like I could somehow will them back. Like this was some kind of sick prank, and any second now, my father would appear, arms crossed, waiting for me to admit defeat. The loudspeaker crackled overhead. Final boarding call for Flight 207 to Denver. Passengers, please proceed to Gate 14 immediately. A couple hurried past me, laughing. A child clutched her mother's hand, dragging a stuffed rabbit behind her. A lump lodged in my throat. Then another buzz. Lilith! You'll be fine, Kala. You always figure things out. A single tear slid down my cheek. They weren't coming back. My hands trembled as I checked my wallet. $23.50. An expired student ID. A receipt from some gas station. I opened my suitcase. A few clothes, no toothbrush, no charger. Panic clawed at my chest. I was alone. I spent that first night in a corner of the terminal, curled up in a plastic chair, watching flights I would never be on blink across the departure screens. By morning, the airport had grown unfamiliar. Cold, sterile, a place that didn't belong to me. The coffee shop cashier eyed me suspiciously when I counted out crumpled bills for the cheapest thing on the menu. I walked until my feet ached, until the automatic doors whooshed open and I stepped into the Texas heat. The city stretched before me, loud, fast, indifferent. I had nowhere to go. A year passed. I learned to survive. I found work at a diner, a greasy spoon on the edge of town, the kind of place where the coffee was burnt, and the jukebox only played half the songs. I scrubbed dishes. I bussed tables. I worked until my fingers ached, then did it all over again the next day. I slept in a room above a laundromat, where the walls were thin and the air smelled like detergent and mold. I kept my head down. Marlo, the owner, didn't ask questions. She watched me, sharp-eyed but silent, like she could see the cracks in me but knew better than to pry. And maybe, for the first time, I was free. No one controlled me. No one dictated my future. But survival had a cost. I had no safety net, no family, no one to call if things went wrong. And they did go wrong. It was a slow night. I was wiping down a table when the door opened, and a voice I hadn't heard in over a year slithered through the diner. Well, well. So this is where you ended up. I froze. Cormac Whitmore stood in the doorway. The same tailored suit, the same cold eyes scanning the room, taking it all in with thinly veiled disgust. The diner fell silent. The cook behind the counter stopped mid-motion, spatula hovering over the griddle. The couple in the booth by the window turned to watch. Cormac took a slow step forward. This is what happens when you think you can survive without family, Calla. You were supposed to be better than this. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around the rag in my hand. What do you want? He scoffed, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. I told you, you were never going to be more than a waitress scraping by. Guess I was right. Heat rushed to my face. He was enjoying this. He wanted me humiliated, small, just like before. But I wasn't the same girl they left behind. You done? Marlo's voice cut through the tension like a knife. She stood by the counter, arms crossed, unimpressed. Or should I get someone to escort you out? Cormac let out a low laugh, shaking his head. I don't need to waste another second here. He turned and walked out. Didn't even look back. I should have felt relief. Instead, I gripped the counter so tightly my knuckles went white. Anger burned beneath my skin. No more running, no more pretending. I would prove them wrong. But proving them wrong meant facing something I never wanted to see again. My past. It had been 5 years since I'd been left behind. 5 years of scraping by, building something out of nothing, convincing myself that I was untouchable. I wasn't. I had my own tiny apartment now, a single-room space above a laundromat that smelled like detergent and desperation. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I worked long shifts at the diner, saved every penny, and ignored the ghosts of my past. Until the past came knocking. The phone rang early that morning. Ms. Whitmore, we need to discuss the outstanding loan under your name. I frowned. Loan? I don't have a loan. A pause. Ms. Whitmore, there's a $15,000 loan in your name, opened last year. Everything in me went still. That's not possible, I said, my voice sharper now. Send me the paperwork. Minutes later, the email came through. My fingers trembled as I opened the attachment. And then my stomach dropped. There it was. A loan document. My name, my supposed signature, and a cosigner, Ronan Whitmore. I gripped my phone so tightly I thought it might crack. My own brother had stolen my identity. He had taken out a loan in my name, let the debt pile up, and never once thought to warn me. My phone buzzed again. A text. From him. Guess you found out. No big deal, just fix it. A slow, simmering rage spread through me. I had spent 5 years cutting them out. 5 years proving I didn't need them. And they still found a way to use me. I didn't call Ronan. He wasn't worth it. I called her instead. The phone barely rang once before she answered. "Oh, Calla, sweetheart, it's been so long." My throat tightened. That voice, honeyed, soft, like she had been waiting to hear from me. Like she hadn't erased me from her life. I forced steel into my tone. "Did you know?" A pause. "Know what, darling?" "About the loan." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, in a voice just barely above a whisper, she admitted, "Yes." I closed my eyes. She kept talking, rushing the words now. "But you have to understand, Calla. Ronan was in trouble. He needed help." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "He needed help." My voice shook. "So you let him steal from me?" Lilith sighed, the sound of a woman exhausted by her own choices. "We thought you'd be okay, Calla. You've always been so independent, so strong. Ronan just—" "Just what?" I snapped. "Needed someone to clean up his mess, and you let him use me?" Tears filled her voice now. "I didn't know what else to do." "You could have chosen me," I said quietly. "Just once." Silence. I didn't wait for an excuse. I hung up. The betrayal was worse than the night they abandoned me. That night, at least, they had let me go. Now, I realized, they had never let me go at all. I sat in my dimly lit apartment, the loan document crumpled in my hands. I could fix it. I could pay it off, take the hit just like always. Or I could fight back. A cold, hard certainty settled in my bones. They didn't get to use me anymore. I grabbed my laptop and started typing. First step? Closing every door they could use to reach me. I locked my credit, froze every account, filed a fraud report. Next step? Finding out just how deep this mess went. I wasn't cleaning up after them. I was burning it all down. If they wanted me to fix their mess, they'd regret ever thinking I would. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Cutting off my family should have been the end of it. I had taken back control, locked down my finances, and ensured they couldn't steal from me again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more. More damage, more lies. And if there was one thing I had learned about Ronan, it was that he never stopped at just enough. So, I started searching. I combed through my bank statements, line by line, looking for anything out of place. Most of it was normal: rent payments, groceries, my small savings deposit at the end of each month. But then I checked my credit report, and my stomach dropped. A second account, one I had never opened. It was drained dry. Not just that, there were thousands in cash advances linked to my name over the past 2 years. My heart pounded as I cross-checked the withdrawals. Most of them had been taken out near East Austin, close to an area notorious for illegal gambling. And then I saw the name: Apex Financial Holdings. I opened a new tab and started searching. It took less than 5 minutes to confirm my worst suspicion. Apex wasn't just any financial company. It was a shell business, a front for loan sharks. And it was owned by a man I had only heard whispers about: Dante Morales. A criminal. A man who didn't deal in negotiations. He dealt in consequences. My fingers tightened around my phone as a sick realization settled in my gut. Ronan didn't just steal from me. He had dragged me into something much, much worse. I knew I should stay out of it, let Ronan burn for his mistakes. But if my name was tangled in this mess, I needed to know how deep it went. That's how I ended up outside a warehouse in East Austin at nearly midnight. The place looked abandoned, but I knew better. The street was too quiet, the kind of silence that only came when people knew better than to ask questions. My pulse pounded as I stepped inside. The air was thick with sweat, cigarette smoke, and something else. Fear. And then I saw him. Ronan. He looked wrecked, bruises on his cheek, split lip, clothes wrinkled like he had been sleeping in them. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I saw him. Dante Morales. He sat at a table, dressed in a perfectly pressed suit, completely at ease. 2 men flanked him, still as statues, their expressions unreadable. He barely glanced at me before smirking. "So you're the sister," he said, his voice smooth. "The one with the clean record." I kept my face blank. "I have nothing to do with this." Dante leaned forward slightly, folding his hands together. "See, that's the thing. Your brother said otherwise." My jaw clenched. I turned to Ronan, who wouldn't meet my eyes. "Calla, please," he muttered. "You can fix this." Fix it, like I had been doing my entire life. Dante slid a document across the table, a debt contract, $50,000, and my name, forged, as a co-signer. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. Ronan hadn't just dragged me into his mess. He had signed my name into a deal with a criminal. I exhaled slowly, forcing my hands to stay steady. I looked Dante in the eye. "I didn't sign this, and I'm not paying a damn cent." Silence. Then Dante smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent a chill down my spine. "That's unfortunate," he murmured, "because your brother here—" He nodded to his men. They grabbed Ronan, shoving him forward. He stumbled, barely catching himself before hitting the table. "Is running out of time," Ronan whimpered. I barely recognized the sound. My brother, the same man who had laughed when they left me at that airport, looked at me now like I was his last chance at survival. His fingers wrapped around my wrist. "Calla, please," he whispered. "If I don't pay—" I yanked my arm free. "You did this to yourself." His face twisted in desperation. "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," I snapped. "You just made the wrong one." Dante let out a soft chuckle, like he was watching an interesting show. "Family is funny like that," he mused, "always leaving behind collateral damage." I refused to let him rattle me. I turned on my heel and walked away, my heart hammering. I knew this wasn't over. Dante wouldn't forget my face. And Ronan? Ronan wasn't done using me. I had just declared war against my own brother. And my family? They were about to escalate this fight. I had done everything right. I cut off all contact, blocked Ronan's number, notified my bank of every fraud risk imaginable. I even filed a report, though I knew damn well that people like Dante Morales didn't care about what was legal. I tried to move on, but my family didn't believe in moving on. They only believed in getting what they wanted. So, when my phone rang one evening with an unknown number, I almost ignored it. Almost. I shouldn't have picked up. "Calla?" A voice I hadn't heard in years. "Lilith." She sounded different, weaker, shaky. "Please, sweetheart, just meet us for dinner. We need to talk." Every fiber of my being screamed no. But there was something in her voice, real desperation, and for a split second, I felt the pull. One last time. They picked the place on purpose. Some fancy restaurant downtown, a place where people like us didn't belong. The kind of place where everything was white tablecloths and fake politeness, where the rich ate steak while drowning in debt. And sure enough, they were already seated when I walked in. Cormac, composed, cold, looking at me like a business opportunity. Lilith, red-eyed, clutching tissues like an actress mid-performance. And Ronan, silent, ashamed, or pretending to be. I didn't sit down. "Whatever you're about to ask, the answer is no." Cormac barely reacted, just folded his hands like he was negotiating a deal. "We're not here to fight, Calla. We need your help." I crossed my arms. "That's new." Lilith reached for me, her voice soft, pleading. "Ronan made mistakes. We all did. But we're family, and family helps each other." The words were so hollow, I almost laughed. Cormac reached into his jacket and slid a document across the table. I didn't pick it up. "You should read it," he said smoothly. So I did, and my blood went ice cold. A notarized contract, a legal agreement making me financially responsible for Ronan's debt. $50,000, owed to Dante Morales. I inhaled sharply. Cormac's voice was steady. "Sign this, and we'll take care of the rest. Dante will leave you alone." Lilith grabbed my hand. Her fingers were trembling. "Please, baby, it's just money." I stared at her, then at Ronan. He hadn't said a word. Finally, he spoke, quiet, hesitant. "I'll pay you back, I swear," and that's when I did laugh. A deep, bitter sound that made Cormac's jaw tighten. I leaned forward, looking each of them dead in the eye. "You think I'm that stupid?" Cormac's smile thinned. "It's the right thing to do, Calla." I shook my head, disgust curling in my chest. The right thing would have been not stealing from me. The right thing would have been not abandoning me in an airport and then coming back years later, expecting me to fix your mess. Lilith flinched. "Don't say that." I stood up. "Enjoy your dinner." Cormac's voice turned sharp, low enough that only I could hear. "If you walk away, don't expect us to be there when you need us." I froze for half a second. Then, I turned back. And I smiled. "You were never there to begin with." I walked out. They just made their last mistake with me. And Ronan? He wasn't done playing dirty yet. It had been 2 days since the dinner, and I had expected the retaliation to come immediately. But the silence was worse. My family didn't do silence. It meant something was brewing. I tried to focus on work, but the air at the diner felt different. The usual chatter among customers had shifted. Conversations dropped when I passed by. A few people shot me quick glances, then looked away just as fast. Marlo caught my wrist as I cleared a table, her grip firm. "You need to see this, Calla." She handed me her phone, and I barely had to glance at the screen before my stomach turned to stone. A post on a local Austin community page. "Some people just abandon their family when things get tough. Calla Whitmore, what a heartless, selfish disgrace." I gritted my teeth as I scrolled. Hundreds of shares, hundreds of comments, people I didn't know, dragging my name through the mud. Some called me ungrateful. Some said I should be ashamed. Some even suggested that someone like me didn't deserve to work in a place like this. I didn't have to check the account that posted it. I already knew it was Ronan. He hadn't just come after me. He was trying to ruin me. My grip tightened around the phone as I scrolled, scanning the endless flood of strangers judging me over a story they knew nothing about. This wasn't just a warning. This was a public execution. I stormed out of the diner, barely hearing Marlo calling my name. My hands shook, but not from fear. From rage. I dialed his number. He picked up immediately, smug. Waiting. "You think this is funny?" I snapped. Ronan sighed dramatically. "I don't know what you're talking about, sis." "Bullshit. Take it down." Now silence. Then, laughter. Or what? That voice. The same one I'd heard my entire life. The one that lied, manipulated, stole, and still thought he could get away with it. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. "You think walking away makes you safe?" Ronan said smoothly. "It doesn't. People remember things, and so do I." It wasn't just a taunt, it was a threat. I forced my voice to stay calm. Controlled. "Try me, Ronan. I dare you." He chuckled. "We'll see about that." And then the line went dead. I didn't panic. I planned. First, I called a lawyer. I need to talk about a defamation case. Then, I locked down everything. Every social media account, every email. I scrubbed any public trace of my past, my job, my life. If he wanted to destroy me, I'd make damn sure there was nothing left to target. I warned Marlo. "This might not be over," I told her. She just nodded, arms crossed. "You let me know if I need to throw someone out." And then I made a decision. This wasn't just about family anymore. This was war. If Ronan wanted to play dirty, I'd make sure he regretted it. And then, just as I expected, they escalated things again. The smear post had doubled in reach overnight. The comments were relentless. Strangers who didn't know a damn thing about me were tearing me apart online, calling me selfish, ungrateful, a disgrace. And at the diner, the shift in energy was undeniable. People whispered when I passed by. Customers who used to chat now avoided eye contact. Even Marlo seemed to be watching me differently, like she was waiting to see if I'd break. I wouldn't. But I should have known this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The door swung open with too much force. I didn't have to look up. I already knew. Cormac, Ronan, Lilith. They walked in together, like a perfectly staged scene. Cormac adjusted his expensive suit, eyes scanning the place with the disgust of a man who thought he was better than everyone here. Lilith clutched her purse like the air itself might dirty her. And Ronan? He leaned against the counter with that same smug smirk he had been wearing since we were kids, like he was always one step ahead, always in control. The diner went silent. I felt every set of eyes shift to me. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. They came here for one reason: to humiliate me. Cormac spoke first, his voice loud on purpose. "Calla, we need to talk." I crossed my arms. "We have nothing to talk about." Lilith stepped forward, her voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "Please, Calla, we just want to understand why you're doing this to us." My stomach twisted. That tone, that same fake pleading voice she had always used to make me doubt myself. People started whispering. I could feel them forming their own opinions, deciding whether I was the villain or the victim. Ronan shook his head, laughing under his breath. "You really have no shame, do you?" His voice dripped with disappointment, like he was the one who had been wronged. "After everything we did for you?" I clenched my fist so hard, my nails dug into my palms. Cormac tilted his head, assessing me. "You think you're better than us now?" His voice was smooth, patient. "This little diner job, this life you're trying to build, it's pathetic, Calla." Something snapped inside me. I took a step forward. My voice was sharp, cutting. "You don't get to come in here and act like you're the victims." The diner was dead silent. I took another step. "You abandoned me." Another. "You stole from me." My voice rose, cutting through the room. "And now, when I finally cut you off, you come crawling back. Why? Because you need something?" Cormac's expression darkened. "Watch your tone, Calla." I laughed, cold, humorless. "Or what? You'll leave me stranded again?" Ronan scoffed, shaking his head. "You really think you can just walk away from us?" I met his eyes. I already did. Lilith started crying. "We're your family." My voice was ice cold. You were just the people who raised me." Marlowe stepped in then, her voice calm but firm. "You heard her! Get the hell out!" Cormac held my gaze for a long moment. And then, just like that, he turned and walked out. Lilith followed, still clutching her purse like she had just survived something horrific. Ronan was the last to leave. But before he stepped through the door, he turned back, locking eyes with me one last time. He wasn't done, but neither was I. The diner stayed silent for a long moment. Then Marlowe exhaled. "You okay?" I let out a slow breath. But I will be." I looked around, meeting the gazes of my coworkers, the customers still watching me. Some were sympathetic, some were still judging me. But none of it mattered anymore, because I knew the truth. And now so did everyone else. They wanted to humiliate me. Instead, they showed the world exactly who they really were. And that's when they decided to destroy me for real. I thought the public showdown at the diner had been the climax. The moment they realized I was done, the moment they'd slink back into the shadows, licking their wounds. I was wrong. They came harder. The smear campaign got worse. Ronan doubled down online, spreading lies so outrageous they should have been laughable. But people believed them anyway. Cormac called my workplace. He told Marlowe that I was troubled, a disgrace, that I was stealing from family, and a danger to customers. Lilith left voicemails, sobbing, begging. "You don't understand what you're doing, Calla. This is killing us. It's breaking your father's heart." Their desperation reeked of manipulation. But the final straw? Cormac showed up at my apartment. The knock was sharp, demanding. I ignored it. Then his voice came through the door, low and full of venom. "You think this is over, Calla? You're nothing without us." My hands clenched into fists. Every instinct told me to stay silent. But I was done hiding. I opened the door. Cormac stood there, smug. Ronan just behind him, arms crossed like a soldier waiting for orders. Lilith clutched her purse, her eyes already red like she was preparing for a performance. Cormac smiled, like he had already won. I didn't let him speak. I pushed past him, stepping onto the sidewalk. Somewhere public, visible. If he wanted a fight, he wasn't going to get it behind closed doors. They followed me. The plaza was busy, people walking, shopping, a few sitting at the cafe across the street. Perfect. Cormac's voice cut through the air, sharp and polished, like a weapon he'd wielded his whole life. You owe us, Calla. We gave you life, and this is how you repay us? People turned to watch. Lilith sniffled, her voice wounded. We just want our daughter back. Ronan sneered, shaking his head. You think you're special? You're still the same scared little girl we left at that airport. I sucked in a slow breath. Calm, controlled, deadly. Then I stepped forward. You don't own me anymore. Cormac's eyes flashed. You were a mistake. The air went still. For a moment, no one moved. I saw real hate in his face. Not just anger, not just frustration, pure, seething resentment. And I realized something. He had never wanted me to survive without them. They needed me to fail, because if I could succeed without them, then their power meant nothing. I reached into my bag. I pulled out a check, and I handed it to him. $73.50, the exact cost of a one-way bus ticket back home. That's what it would have cost me to go back, if I ever wanted to. Cormac's face turned red. He snatched the check, ripped it in half, and let the pieces flutter to the ground. His voice shook with rage. You ungrateful little... Security appeared. 2 uniformed guards. Is there a problem here? Cormac stepped back, barely containing his fury. Ronan spat at the ground, then turned and walked away. Lilith gave me one last tearful look before following them. I didn't watch them go. I already knew. They had nothing left to take from me. That night, my phone rang. Marlo. You okay? I hesitated, then nodded to myself. Yeah. I think I am. The past doesn't disappear overnight. But for the first time, I was no longer chained to it. They wanted me to be nothing without them. But I was finally free. And now, for the first time in my life, I could finally decide who I wanted to be. It had been a week since I severed the last rotting thread that tied me to my family. A week of silence. No manipulative texts, no guilt-tripping calls. Just silence. And at first, it felt like victory. But victory didn't feel like I thought it would. The quiet was too loud. I had spent my whole life fighting, bracing for the next hit, waiting for the next demand, the next cruel word disguised as love. And now, there was nothing, no enemy, no war, just me. And I didn't know what to do with that. The knock on my door was soft, hesitant. I almost didn't answer. But when I opened it, Ezra stood there, a bag of takeout in his hands. No dramatic speeches, no questions, just understanding. I stepped aside to let him in, and we sat on the couch, eating quietly. For the first time in days, I wasn't alone. Ezra broke the silence first. You don't have to pretend you're okay with this, he said, voice low. I exhaled, setting down my chopsticks. I know, but I also know this was the right thing to do. He nodded, squeezing my hand. And for the first time, I didn't flinch at someone reaching out. The next morning, I walked into Marlo's diner, my second home. Marlo stood behind the counter, arms crossed, shaking her head. Took you long enough. I blinked. What? She gestured around. You've been walking around like a damn ghost for the past week. I was wondering when you'd finally snap out of it. A small laugh slipped out. So? You're saying I should stop sulking? Marlo smirked. I'm saying you're wasting time. Life's waiting for you, kid. And just like that, something shifted inside me. My past didn't define me. I had people who actually cared about me. For the first time, I truly believed it. Later that day, Marlo slid a small envelope across the counter. I frowned, opening it. Inside was a set of keys. I looked up, confused. What's this? Marlo leaned against the counter, casual as ever. A fresh start. A space of your own. If you're ready. I looked down at the keys, my heart hammering. It wasn't just a gift. It was a lease. A restaurant lease. Marlo was giving me a shot to open my own place. No strings attached. I gripped the keys tightly, emotion swelling in my chest. I don't know what to say. Marlo shrugged. Then don't say anything. Just do something with it. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about a restaurant. This was about finally building something that was mine. For the first time, my future was in my own hands, and I wasn't about to waste it. Months had passed since I held those keys in my hands, uncertain and terrified. Since I stepped into the empty space that would become mine. Now I stood in the middle of my restaurant. My restaurant. It wasn't perfect. The floors had scuff marks that wouldn't buff out. The chairs were mismatched because I could only afford secondhand, and the kitchen still had a few quirks that drove me insane. But it was alive. The air buzzed with laughter, with the clinking of plates, the hum of conversations. Every table was full. People came back. Not because they owed me anything, not because they needed something from me, but because they wanted to. Marlo sat at the counter, arms crossed, a knowing smirk on her face. Told you, she said simply. I rolled my eyes. Told me what? That you'd pull this off. Ezra walked in, sleeves rolled up, tying a borrowed apron around his waist. And that you'd make it look easy, I scoffed. If by easy, you mean working 17-hour days on my feet, sure. Ezra just grinned and grabbed a tray of drinks. I wiped my hands on my apron and took a slow, steady breath. This was it. This was what I had fought for. This was mine. Long after the last customer left, I sat alone in the quiet. For the first time in months, I did something I had promised myself I wouldn't. I checked social media. I never unfollowed them. I told myself it was out of indifference, but I knew better. I scrolled. Ronan was still a mess. He had moved on to new scams, still conning people, still making excuses. But people were catching on. The comments under his posts were full of accusations, people calling him out. No one was falling for it anymore. Cormac's world had crumbled. The hardware store had gone under. His posts were bitter, filled with legal battles over unpaid debts. Once, people in town respected him. Now, they ignored him. No one cared. Lilith still played the devoted mother. Her page was full of nostalgic posts. Missing my family today. Hold your loved ones close. There were old pictures, holidays, smiling faces, but never any of me. That was when I finally understood. They had spent so long trying to pull me back, but not because they loved me, because they needed me. And now that I was useless to them, they had erased me completely. For the first time, it didn't hurt. I closed the laptop. I wouldn't check again. The past wasn't my concern anymore. I walked to the front of the restaurant, where Ezra stood with a dish towel slung over his shoulder, watching me. You coming to bed? I looked around one last time. This wasn't just a restaurant, it was proof. Proof that I survived. Proof that I won. I smiled. Yeah, I'm done here. They spent their whole lives trying to break me. But in the end, I built something better than they ever could. Before we wrap up this story, I want to leave you with something to think about. Life doesn't hand you a perfect beginning. Some of us are born into broken families, into situations where love is conditional, where survival means navigating manipulation, betrayal, and pain. But here's what I've learned. You are not bound by the people who try to break you. There will always be those who think they own you, whether it's family, society, or your past mistakes. They will try to convince you that without them, you are nothing. But that's a lie. The truth is, you get to decide who you become. Success is not revenge, it's freedom. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and build something better. So I want to ask you, have you ever had to walk away from someone who was holding you back? Was it family, a toxic friend, a job that drained you? What gave you the strength to finally say, I deserve better? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you feel something, hit that like button and type 1 in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. I want to connect with you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Because sometimes the best way to move forward is to know you're not alone. See you in the next one. I'm Soraya. And this is the story of how my husband thought he could outsmart me. It started with whispers in the dark, bank transactions I never made, and a name, Ilya Moreau, that I had never heard before. Declan, my husband, wasn't just planning to leave me. He was planning to take everything, but he underestimated me. He thought I would crumble. Instead, I moved first. I protected what was mine, and 1 week later, his entire plan backfired. But what's worse wasn't just the betrayal. It was how long he had been planning it, how many lies he had told, and the lengths he was willing to go to destroy me. I woke up to an empty bed. The cold sheets beside me told me Declan had been gone for a while. At first, I thought maybe he had gone to the bathroom or grabbed a glass of water. But as I sat up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, I caught the faint sound of his voice. Low, hushed, careful. The hallway light was off, but a sliver of moonlight streamed through the window, casting shadows across the floor. My stomach twisted as I followed the sound. Just a little longer. She doesn't suspect anything yet. I stopped mid-step, my breath hitched. Declan's voice was smooth, reassuring, like he was calming someone down. My heart pounded against my ribs. Who the hell was he talking to? I stood there, straining to hear more, but the words that followed were muffled. His tone dropped, barely above a whisper. My fingers curled into fists. This wasn't some late-night work call. Declan never whispered on work calls. Hell, he never even cared if I overheard his conversations before. My mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. After a few seconds, I heard his footsteps approaching. I barely had time to dart back to the bedroom before he rounded the corner. My pulse hammered as I slid under the covers, feigning sleep. A moment later, I felt the bed dip. His weight shifted beside me, but I kept my breathing steady. A few minutes passed, and then he exhaled slowly, relaxed, like nothing had happened. I turned over, blinking up at him. "Where were you?" My voice came out soft, groggy, like I had just woken up. "Bathroom," he muttered without hesitation. "A lie? And the phone call?" Declan barely flinched. "Just a client. Had to smooth out some details for a case." I stared at him, watching for any sign of hesitation. He met my gaze, unreadable as always. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe it really was work. But that whisper, that sentence, she doesn't suspect anything yet. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced myself to roll over. My mind was screaming at me, but I ignored it. Not tonight. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up before Declan. He was still fast asleep, his arm draped across the pillow, where my head should have been. I slipped out of bed, grabbed my phone, and padded barefoot to the kitchen. I didn't usually check our bank accounts. Declan handled most of the finances, and I had never given it much thought. But something felt off. I scrolled through the transactions. My stomach tightened. $500, $1,200, $750, $2,000, a dozen withdrawals over the past 3 months, all relatively small but frequent enough to raise a red flag. Declan and I shared expenses, mortgage, utilities, groceries, but we also had separate accounts for personal spending. These transactions weren't for bills, weren't for investments, and definitely weren't for anything we had discussed. I took a shaky breath, my hands tightening around my phone. Behind me, I heard footsteps. I quickly locked my screen and turned to see Declan leaning against the doorway, rubbing his neck. "Morning," he mumbled, voice thick with sleep. What's for breakfast? I set my phone down. I was about to ask you the same thing. He smirked, stepping forward to pour himself coffee. Guess it's your turn then. I watched him take a sip, his free hand resting on the counter. I checked our bank account this morning. Declan froze for half a second. Just long enough. His grip tightened around the mug before he forced a chuckle. And? There are a lot of small withdrawals. I crossed my arms. Things I don't recognize. He barely hesitated. Just small investments. A few business opportunities. Business opportunities? Declan nodded, setting his cup down. Nothing to worry about. Short-term gains, that's all. He was lying. I knew it. I just didn't know why. The rest of the day, I tried to shake the unease. But Declan wasn't helping. He was glued to his phone, taking calls in the other room. His screen was always face down when he set it on the table. And every time I looked at him, I felt like there was a wall between us, one that hadn't been there before. That night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind wouldn't quiet down. Declan had always been confident, smooth, a man who knew how to talk his way out of anything, but I had been with him long enough to know when something was off. And something was definitely off. I turned to face him. He was already asleep, his breathing steady, his face calm, like a man with nothing to hide. I wasn't convinced. A voice in my head whispered the words I had been trying to push away all day. Am I being paranoid, or is something really wrong? The doubt refused to fade, even as the morning light filtered through my window. I had spent the entire night tossing and turning, unable to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Declan's voice from the night before still echoed in my mind. Casual, dismissive, yet calculated. The kind of tone someone used when they were hiding something in plain sight. I forced myself out of bed and went about my morning routine, but my movements felt mechanical. My thoughts were stuck in a loop, replaying every interaction, every red flag I had ignored over the past few months. And then Declan strolled into the kitchen like nothing had changed. "Morning, babe," he said, pressing a quick kiss to my temple. I was thinking, we should probably get our financials in order. You know, just in case of emergencies. I froze, my fingers tightening around my coffee mug. Our financials? I echoed carefully. Yeah, he said, leaning against the counter, sipping his coffee like this was just another normal conversation. Like, do you have a full list of your accounts, passwords, assets, that kind of stuff? We should keep everything in one place. I stared at him, my heartbeat drumming in my ears. Declan had never shown an interest in my personal finances. Sure, we had a joint account for bills, but we always kept our personal savings separate. It was just the way we had always done things. I swallowed, forcing a neutral expression. I guess I could put something together. His lips curved into a small smile, but his eyes flickered, just for a second. He nodded like it was no big deal, before changing the subject entirely. But my mind was already racing. This wasn't about us. This wasn't about just in case of emergencies. Declan was preparing for something, and whatever it was, he didn't want me to see it coming. That evening, Declan was uncharacteristically relaxed. He laughed at the TV, scrolled through his phone like nothing was wrong, and even suggested ordering takeout. He was playing the role of a doting husband perfectly. And that's what made my skin crawl. Something had shifted in him, the way he walked, the way he spoke. It was all too easy, too well rehearsed. Then it happened. Declan got up to take a shower, leaving his phone on the coffee table. He never left his phone unattended. Ever. I stared at it, my pulse quickening. The screen was face down, just like it had been for weeks. But then, as if the universe was throwing me a lifeline, a notification lit up the screen. A text message from a name I didn't recognize. Ilya Moreau. I didn't have time to think. I reached for the phone, my hands shaking as I tilted the screen just enough to read the message preview. Just make sure she stays in the dark. Almost there. My breath hitched. My chest tightened so fast it hurt. The room suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were closing in on me. Who the hell was Ilya Moreau? And what did they mean by almost there? My fingers hovered over the screen for half a second, just long enough for the wildest thoughts to flash through my mind. Was this another woman? Was Declan planning to leave me? Was he hiding money? I heard the water shut off. Panic shot through me as I placed the phone back exactly where it had been and sank into the couch, gripping my knees to keep my hands from shaking. A minute later, Declan strolled back into the room, towel drying his hair. I forced myself to look at him. He was so calm, so at ease, completely unaware that I had just seen something I wasn't supposed to. "Did you decide on dinner?" he asked, ruffling his hair. I swallowed hard. "Not yet." He grabbed his phone without a second glance, unlocking it effortlessly. No hesitation, like there wasn't a damn thing to worry about. But I knew better now. I spent the rest of the night trying to rationalize what I had seen. Maybe it wasn't what I thought. Maybe Ilya was a colleague, a business partner. Maybe keeping me in the dark was about something completely different, something innocent. But deep down, I knew better. The pieces were clicking together, one by one. The secrecy, the money disappearing, the call in the middle of the night, the way he was suddenly so interested in my finances. I should have confronted him right then and there. But if I was right, if Declan was really hiding something this big, then I needed proof. Real proof. So instead, I kept my mouth shut. I let him kiss me goodnight, let him slip under the covers like nothing was wrong. And then I lay there, gripping my phone, whispering into the dark. Who the hell is Ilya Moreau? The next morning, the question still haunted me, gnawing at my every thought. I moved through my morning routine like a ghost, going through the motions, but my mind was locked onto one thing: Ilya Moreau. The name lingered in my brain like an unsolved puzzle, a piece that didn't fit but refused to be ignored. Declan sat across from me at breakfast, scrolling through his phone, perfectly at ease. I wondered if he had any idea I had seen that message. If he did, he was a damn good actor. But then, as if sensing my suspicion, he looked up and smiled. "Hey babe, can you sign something real quick?" I nearly choked on my coffee. "Sign what?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "Just some financial updates for tax purposes," he said, sliding a document across the table. His tone was casual, but his fingers drummed against the table in an uneven rhythm. A tell. I picked up the papers, my stomach tightening as I skimmed through the first page. Legal jargon filled the document, but one thing became painfully clear. This wasn't about taxes. I flipped to the last page. Property transfer agreement. My pulse pounded in my ears. My assets, my savings, even the condo. Everything would be moved into his name. I forced myself to look up. Declan was watching me, a careful smile plastered on his face. "Declan," I said, my voice too controlled. "What is this?" His smile didn't falter. "It's just a precaution, babe. A legal convenience. Nothing changes between us." I stared at him, my grip tightening around the paper. "Nothing changes? You're asking me to sign over everything to you." "Not everything," he said smoothly, as if that made it better. "Just consolidating things for protection. You know, in case something happens." My hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, from rage. This wasn't paranoia anymore. This wasn't me reading into things. This was planned. And he had the audacity to sit across from me and act like it was nothing. I placed the document back on the table, slow and deliberate. Then I met his gaze. "I'm not signing this." His smile twitched. His jaw clenched for a fraction of a second, before he let out a short laugh. "Soraya, don't be dramatic. It's just paperwork." I held my ground. "Then why are you so eager for me to sign without reading it?" His expression hardened. "You really don't want to do this, Soraya." He leaned in slightly, his voice low and controlled, but there was something underneath it, a warning, a threat. I met his gaze, unflinching. "Is that a threat?" Declan didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his expression morphing into something dangerously unreadable. The smirk he had worn moments ago faded, replaced with an unsettling calm. "I just think you're making this harder than it needs to be," he said, his voice too smooth, too measured. I swallowed my anger, keeping my expression neutral. He still thought he was in control, that I was just another move on his carefully planned-out chessboard. I let the silence stretch, watching him. The way his fingers tapped idly against the table. The slight twitch in his jaw when I didn't respond. He was waiting for me to react, to get emotional, to panic, to break. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. So I smiled, just enough to make him shift uncomfortably. "You know what, Declan?" I said lightly, standing up and gathering the papers. "You're right, I do need to think about this." His eyes narrowed slightly. He wasn't expecting that. But I had already turned away, walking to the kitchen and placing the documents neatly on the counter. I wasn't going to argue. Not now, not yet. Because now, I was the one in control. That night, Declan acted like nothing had happened. He moved through our home like we were still just another happy couple, making himself a drink, watching the news, scrolling through his phone like he didn't just try to con me into signing away everything I owned. But as I watched him, a realization settled in my chest like a weight. This had never been about saving our marriage. He wasn't trying to fix things. He was setting up his exit, and he wanted to take everything with him when he left. The next morning, I found him in the living room, sipping his coffee like he didn't have a single worry in the world. But when I sat across from him, he glanced up, immediately sensing that something had shifted. "We need to talk," he said, setting his cup down. I tilted my head. "Oh?" He exhaled, as if this was difficult for him, as if he was the one struggling. "I think we should separate." There it was. He said it like a man delivering a well-rehearsed speech, every word perfectly measured. "It's not working anymore," he continued, his tone even. "You have to see that." I stared at him, unmoving. He wasn't asking for a divorce. He was telling me it was happening. I let a beat pass, then another, before I finally spoke. "You've been planning this, haven't you?" A flicker of something crossed his face, gone before I could name it. "It's for the best, Soraya. We've grown apart." Grown apart. That's what he was going with? I leaned forward, resting my arms on the table. "You mean, you want out? But you want to make sure you don't leave empty-handed." His lips pressed into a thin line, but he didn't deny it. I could have screamed. I could have thrown the nearest object across the room. But I didn't. Because something had shifted inside me. A steel resolve that hadn't been there before. So I leaned back in my chair, tilting my head slightly. Then, as calmly as I could, I said the words that would change everything. I already moved my assets. Declan's entire posture stiffened. His breath hitched. Not enough for someone else to notice, but I did. "What do you mean?" His voice was too sharp, too controlled. I smiled, slow and deliberate. "Exactly what it sounds like." His jaw clenched. I saw it then, the second he realized he had lost. He had spent months orchestrating this, setting up every little detail to ensure he came out on top. But he had underestimated me, and he hated that. A long silence stretched between us. Then, finally, Declan exhaled sharply and stood up. He grabbed his coffee, took a slow sip, then turned to me with a look that sent ice through my veins. His smile returned. But this time, it was colder. Calculated. "You're going to regret this, Soraya." She wasn't sure if it was a threat or a desperate bluff. Either way, she was ready. Declan had played his hand, and now it was her turn. The morning air felt heavier than usual as I moved through my routine. Coffee tasted bitter, and the silence of the apartment pressed against me like a weight. I told myself I wouldn't let his words from the night before get to me. But then came the knock at the door. Sharp, measured, official. I set my coffee down and took a breath before opening it. A man in a navy blazer stood on the other side, holding a thick envelope. "Soraya Keller? Yes." He extended the envelope, Expression blank. You've been served! My fingers tightened around the documents as I watched him walk away. The weight of the envelope felt heavier than it should have been. I didn't have to open it to know what it was. Still, I forced myself to sit at the kitchen table, exhaling sharply before sliding my nail under the flap and pulling out the papers. Petition for dissolution of marriage. I skimmed down the page, eyes landing on the financial demands. Declan wasn't just leaving. He wanted half of everything: the condo, the car, 50% of our shared assets, and, because he had the audacity, spousal support. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Of course, he thought he could take everything. He had been planning this for months, probably longer. The man I married was cold. But this was calculated. The smell of polished wood and freshly printed documents filled the air as I sat across from my attorney. She flipped through the papers, barely suppressing a smirk as she reached the financial breakdown. Well, she said, tapping her nails against the desk, he's got nothing. I raised a brow. Just like that? She glanced up, amused. Just like that. You moved everything into a trust before he filed. That means legally he has no access. He can fight for spousal support, but considering your income history compared to his, it's not happening. I let out a slow breath, my shoulders finally releasing the tension I had been holding onto since that knock on my door. For the first time in weeks, I felt truly in control. Declan had spent all this time thinking he was the one orchestrating the game. He had underestimated me. That evening, I had just finished pouring myself a glass of wine when the front door slammed open. I didn't even flinch. Declan stood there, fury rolling off him in waves. His tie was loosened, and his jaw was clenched so tight, I swore I heard his teeth grind. You think you're so smart, don't you? His voice was sharp, venomous. I took a slow sip of my wine, savoring the way his anger twisted around him like a storm. I think I'm finally protecting myself. His hands curled into fists at his sides. You planned this. I set my glass down, tilting my head. So did you. Silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken accusations. Then, finally, he exhaled sharply, his eyes darkening as he muttered, "This isn't over." I exhaled slowly. I had won the first battle, but the war had just begun. For the first time in weeks, I felt a small sense of relief, knowing that Declan had lost his financial grip on me. But I should have known better than to think he would walk away quietly. The first sign of trouble came at work. It started with looks, not the usual passing glances, but lingering stares, whispers that cut off the second I entered the room. By mid-morning, my assistant, Rachel, hesitated before stepping into my office. Hey, I think you should know something. I glanced up from my laptop, already exhausted. What is it? She shifted uncomfortably. There's a rumor going around. I wasn't going to say anything, but... She trailed off, wringing her hands. Just tell me. Rachel hesitated, then sighed. People are saying you took money from your joint accounts, that you were... She swallowed hard. Laundering funds. I stared at her. The words landed like a slap. What? I don't believe it, she added quickly. But Declan, he's been talking to people, lawyers, mutual friends. The story's spreading. My stomach twisted, fury rising in my chest like wildfire. Declan wasn't just trying to take my money. He was trying to ruin me. By the time I got to my lawyer's office, I was barely holding it together. This needs to stop. Now! I slammed the stack of printed screenshots onto the desk, my hands shaking with rage. My lawyer, Patricia, glanced at them and let out a dry chuckle. Well, he's certainly desperate. He's slandering me. Yes, but we can use that. She leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen against her desk. If he's running around making false claims, he's opening himself up to defamation charges. We send a cease and desist first. If he ignores it, we escalate. I clenched my jaw. I don't want this to drag out in court. I just want him to stop. Patricia sighed. He's trying to bait you, Soraya. He wants you to react emotionally. She's right. I turned to see Beatrice, standing by the door with a knowing look. You can't let him dictate your next move, she said, stepping forward. You react too fast, and he wins. I swallowed my anger, nodding stiffly. But inside, I was seething. Declan wanted a fight? He was about to get one. I found him at La Rue, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, laughing over drinks with two colleagues. The sight of him sitting there, completely unfazed, like he hadn't spent the past few days dragging my name through the mud, made my blood boil. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't scream. I didn't need to. I simply walked up to the table, leaned down, and whispered, You have no idea what you've just started. Declan's smirk faltered for a split second, before he masked it with an easy grin. He wiped his mouth with a napkin, eyes gleaming with challenge. Let's see what you've got, then. I had given him one last warning. Now I was done playing fair. Declan had spent weeks trying to manipulate, intimidate, and control me. He had underestimated me at every turn. Now, after failing to take my money, after smearing my name, he was taking one final shot. A desperate man is a dangerous one. I was halfway through my morning coffee when my phone rang. Patricia, I answered, sensing the urgency before she even spoke. You need to come in, my lawyer said without preamble. Declan just filed a motion for a full financial audit. The words sent a sharp jolt through my body. I set my mug down carefully, inhaling deeply. On what grounds? Patricia exhaled. He's claiming you mismanaged joint funds and that you owe him a financial settlement. It's complete nonsense, but that's not the point. Of course it wasn't. He's trying to drain me, I muttered. Legal fees, time, stress. He knows he can't win, so he wants to wear me down. Exactly. A sharp bitterness curled in my chest. Declan never played to win outright. He played to exhaust his opponent. Not this time. I'll be there in an hour, I said before hanging up. By the time I walked into Patricia's office, she already had Declan's motion spread across her desk, annotated in red. Here's the good news, she said, looking up. He doesn't have a single piece of legitimate evidence. The bad news? This could still drag out for weeks, maybe months, if the court entertains his tactics. I clenched my fists. What's our next move? We counterfile and request an immediate dismissal, she said. We also demand that he pay for all legal costs if the court deems this a stall tactic. I smirked. Let's do it. 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting across from Declan in a courtroom. He was dressed sharp, his tie a little too tight, his smirk barely concealed. He thought this was his moment. His lawyer stood first. Your Honor, my client has reason to believe that Mrs. Keller improperly moved assets to avoid a fair divorce settlement. We are requesting a full forensic audit of all financial transfers made in the past 6 months. I didn't react. I didn't flinch. Patricia, calm as ever, adjusted her glasses and stood. Your Honor, all of my client's financial moves were made before Mr. Keller even filed for divorce. There is no evidence of mismanagement or fraud. She slid a thick binder forward. Additionally, we request that this motion be dismissed with prejudice and that Mr. Keller be required to cover all legal fees, as this is a clear attempt at financial harassment. The judge took their time reviewing the documents, their expression unreadable. The room was tense, silent. Declan was watching me, waiting for me to squirm. I didn't give him the satisfaction. Finally, the judge looked up. The court finds no grounds for a full financial audit. The motion is denied. Furthermore, due to lack of evidence, Mr. Keller will be responsible for all legal fees associated with this claim. A sharp clap of the gavel. Just like that, Declan had lost again. Outside the courtroom, Declan walked past me without a word. But as he passed, he muttered just loud enough for me to hear. You think this is over? Just wait. I had won this round, but I knew. Declan still had one last move left. Men like him don't walk away quietly. They don't accept defeat. They regroup, re-strategize, and come back with something even worse. And Declan? He had been plotting this too long to let it end here. I didn't have to wait long to find out what his final move was. The call came the next morning. "Soraya, we have a problem," Patricia said. I gripped the phone tighter. "What now?" There was a pause, then the sound of papers shuffling. "Declan and Ilya have filed a formal complaint. They're accusing you of financial fraud. According to their evidence, you've been falsifying financial records for months." I felt the air leave my lungs. If this accusation stuck, I wouldn't just lose money. I could be facing actual legal consequences. "They submitted documents," Patricia continued, her voice tight. "If the court takes this seriously, you'll be forced into a criminal investigation." The world tilted slightly. I pressed my fingers against my temple, willing myself to stay calm. "And the documents, are they real?" A scoff on the other end. "Absolutely not, but they're good. Someone doctored them well." Of course. Ilya, the invisible hand guiding Declan's every move. "But," Patricia added, "I had Beatrice take a look at them before calling you." And she found something, a flicker of hope. "What?" She recognized the timestamps on the financial transfers. Someone forged them, but they didn't realize one key detail. Those accounts didn't even exist when those transactions supposedly took place. I let out a sharp exhale. That was it. That was the mistake that would ruin them. My fear burned away, replaced by something sharper. Declan wanted a war? Fine. I was about to end it. By the time I arrived at Patricia's office, I had made a decision. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to bury them. "I want to go on the offensive," I said, placing my palms flat on her desk. "Not just to clear my name. I want to take them down." Patricia studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Good. Because we have enough to do it." She motioned to a folder. "We contacted a forensic financial analyst. They confirmed what Beatrice found. The documents were doctored." She smiled, sharp and satisfied. "So here's what we do. We file a motion proving the documents are fraudulent. Then, we sue Declan and Ilya for defamation and falsifying legal evidence." I nodded. "And I want full damages." Patricia leaned back, clearly pleased. "I thought you might say that." 2 weeks later, I faced Declan in court for what would be the last time. I watched him closely as Patricia laid out our case. She spoke with precision, her voice carrying across the room. "These documents, submitted as evidence against my client, were fabricated. We have irrefutable proof that the financial transactions listed never happened." The forensic analyst took the stand, detailing every false timestamp, every manipulated number. Declan's lawyer squirmed. They knew they were losing. Then came the final blow. Patricia placed a new folder on the judge's desk. "Your Honor, in light of these fraudulent accusations, my client is countersuing Mr. Keller and his associate, Ilya Moreau, for defamation and the submission of falsified legal evidence." The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Declan's lawyer turned to him, whispering something urgent. Declan's jaw was locked, his face pale. Finally, his lawyer stood and cleared his throat. "Your Honor, my client wishes to withdraw his claims." Of course he did. He had no choice. The judge nodded. "Motion dismissed. Furthermore, Mr. Keller will be responsible for all legal costs." Declan had lost. Completely. As we exited the courthouse, Declan walked past me without a word. I didn't stop him. I didn't need to. I let him take a few steps before I whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. "We're done here." For the first time in months, I felt something I had almost forgotten. Peace. No more court hearings, no more threats. No more waking up in the middle of the night, dreading what Declan would do next. I had won. It didn't feel like some grand victory, not in the way I had imagined. There were no fireworks, no dramatic final words. Just silence, the kind that comes after a storm, when the sky is still heavy, but the thunder is gone. And for the first time, that silence didn't scare me. 2 days later, I met with Patricia for the last time. She slid a final stack of papers across her desk. It's done. Declan signed the settlement. I exhaled slowly, my fingers hovering over the documents before finally picking them up. I scanned through the details. Even though I already knew the outcome, Declan got nothing, not a dime. His financial claims? Dismissed. His defamation case? Backfired. His reputation? Ruined. He had tried to destroy me, and in the end, he was the one left with nothing. Patricia leaned back in her chair, watching me. How do you feel? I let out a quiet laugh, more exhale than sound. Lighter, she smiled. Good, you deserve that. I nodded, slipping the documents into my bag. This was it, the final step. I stood, extending my hand. Thank you, Patricia, for everything. She shook it firmly. Go enjoy your life, Soraya. You've earned it. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. That evening, Beatrice and my mother insisted on a victory dinner. Margot greeted me with a warm hug as I stepped into her home, her eyes full of relief. It's over, she whispered. Yes, I murmured. It is. Beatrice poured champagne, raising her glass with a mischievous grin. To freedom! And to never letting a man think he can outsmart you again. I clinked my glass against hers, laughing. I'll drink to that. We ate, we talked, we reminisced. And for the first time in months, I wasn't constantly looking over my shoulder. I wasn't waiting for the next hit. The war was over. Later that night, I stood on my balcony, gazing at the Chicago skyline. The city lights shimmered, stretching infinitely into the horizon. Everything felt different. I was no longer the woman who had ignored the warning signs. No longer the woman who had believed in the illusion of safety, of permanence. I had lost things, trust, time, the version of love I thought I had. But I had gained more, strength, clarity, control. My phone vibrated on the table beside me. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. I didn't hesitate, blocked. I turned back to my laptop, opening a blank document. A new chapter, a new story, my story. As I closed my laptop, I whispered, "This is my story now." Before we wrap up, let me leave you with something to think about. Life has a way of testing us in the moments we least expect. Sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who betray us the deepest. But here's what I've learned. Strength isn't about avoiding betrayal, it's about how you rise after it. When I stood at the edge of my marriage, I could have let it break me. I could have let fear and doubt consume me. But instead, I chose to fight. Not just for my finances, but for my dignity, my freedom, and my future. And if there's one thing I hope you take from this story, it's this. You are stronger than you think. If you've ever been blindsided by betrayal, if you've ever felt like the rug was pulled from under you, know this. You are not alone. Life may throw its worst at you, but it's in those moments that you discover who you truly are. And sometimes, walking away from what no longer serves you is the greatest victory of all. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to fight for yourself, even when the odds were against you? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one of them. And if this story resonated with you, drop a 1 in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. And of course, if you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. There's so much more to come. Until next time, stay strong, stay smart, and never let anyone take away your power. I'm Abigail, and let me tell you a story. My story. When I was 16, my parents left me at a train station. Not by accident. Not because they forgot. They did it on purpose. They wanted to teach me a lesson, to see how long it would take me to find my way home. I never went back. But 20 years later, they found me. Not because they missed me, not because they regretted what they did. They found me because they needed something, money, support, control. And when I refused, they didn't stop at guilt. They turned my own family against me. They spread lies. They tried to destroy everything I built. July heat clung to my skin as I leaned against the car window, half asleep, my headphones drowning out the hum of the highway. My parents, Magnus and Celeste, sat up front, bickering about something I had long since tuned out. The road stretched endlessly ahead, cutting through miles of Alabama's back roads. We had just spent the weekend visiting my older sister, Vivienne, at college. The trip had been routine, Vivienne pretending everything was fine, Mom making passive-aggressive comments about how I should be more like my sister, and Dad barely acknowledging either of us unless it was to bark an order. I was used to it. It was just another day in our family, another lesson, another test. I cracked my eyes open as the car slowed down. A train station sat just off the highway, a relic of another time, rusted and nearly abandoned. Dad pulled into the lot, rolling the car to a stop by a pair of old vending machines. "Go grab me a soda," he said without looking at me. I yanked my headphones down and blinked. "What?" Mom turned in her seat, flashing me the kind of forced smile that never reached her eyes. "Get your father a drink, honey, and grab me a water." I sighed, pushing open the door. The heat hit me like a wall as I stepped out onto the cracked pavement. I didn't bother arguing. It never worked anyway. The vending machines sat beside the station entrance, their faded decals peeling from the years of sun exposure. I dug a crumpled $5 bill from my pocket and fed it into the slot, pressing the buttons for their drinks. The machines groaned, struggling against time before finally spitting out a lukewarm soda and a bottle of water. I turned, bottles in hand, expecting to see the car waiting where I left it. It wasn't. The lot was empty. For a second, my brain refused to register what I was seeing. Maybe they had moved to another spot? Maybe they were just out of sight. I took a step forward, my breath catching in my throat as I scanned the empty parking spaces. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Let's see how long it takes you to get home. Consider this a lesson in problem solving." I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a joke. They left me here. My fingers fumbled as I hit the call button. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. And again. Each time, the same hollow beep echoed in my ear. I stood there, gripping the soda so tightly, the plastic crinkled beneath my fingers. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, drowning out the distant sound of a train horn. They weren't coming back. It should have shocked me. It should have devastated me. But instead, an eerie calm settled over me. This wasn't the first time they'd pulled something like this. When I was 13, they had locked me outside in the middle of a storm because I forgot to take the trash out. At 14, they made me walk 6 miles home from school in the rain as punishment for missing the bus. This was just another lesson, another twisted way of proving that I was disposable. I glanced around the station. A handful of people moved about, oblivious to the 16-year-old girl standing there with nothing but her wallet and a growing sense of rage. I wasn't going to wait for them. I wasn't going to play their game. I checked my pocket. $140, savings from my summer job. Not much, but enough. The old man behind the ticket counter barely looked up as I approached. "Where's the nearest bus station?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. He pointed down the road. "Couple miles that way." I nodded, already moving. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom. "Don't you dare call your aunt. Your father says you need to figure this out on your own." I blocked the number. Then I did exactly what they told me not to. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Abigail?" I swallowed hard. "Aunt Marigold, can you help me?" My voice was steady, but inside I was crumbling. "Abigail?" Marigold's voice was sharp with worry. "Where are you?" I swallowed hard, gripping the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. I was standing alone at a train station, abandoned by the people who were supposed to love me. My heart pounded in my chest, but my voice came out eerily steady. "They left me, Aunt Marigold. They just drove away." There was a pause, then a sharp intake of breath. "Stay right there, sweetheart. I'm coming to get you." That was 20 years ago. Now, I stood in the corner office of Haven Developments, my company, staring out over the Austin skyline. The city was alive, the streets below buzzing with movement, but in my office, it was just me and the past creeping back in. My phone sat on my desk, the screen still lit with missed calls. 39 of them. I ignored the unknown numbers. My eyes zeroed in on the only one that mattered. Vivian. A name I hadn't seen in 2 decades. My stomach twisted as I pressed play on the first voicemail. Abby, please pick up. Mom and Dad found you. They need your help. My grip on the phone tightened. That name, that tone. She still called me Abby, like we were kids, like nothing had happened. I exhaled sharply and deleted the voicemail. The next one was just crying. By the third, she sounded frantic. Abigail, please. You don't understand. They're desperate. Just talk to me. I set the phone down before I could smash it against my desk. They had found me, and I knew exactly what that meant. I walked away from them 2 decades ago with nothing but a bus ticket and a burning need to survive. I worked 3 jobs, slept in a studio apartment that smelled like mold, and clawed my way through college. Every brick of Haven Developments had been built with the life they tried to destroy. Now, just as I was finally free, they wanted back in. I sat down, hands shaking slightly as I ran them through my hair. My reflection in the window was calm, composed, but my mind was anything but. I knew this day would come. I just hadn't expected it to be now. I scrolled through my voicemails until I saw a name I hadn't spoken in 20 years. Magnus Holloway, my father. I hesitated for half a second before pressing play. The moment his voice hit my ears, something inside me froze. You think you're better than us now? His voice was slurred, thick with something I recognized all too well. Bitterness and alcohol. We made you, Abigail. Everything you have is because of us. I clenched my jaw as he rambled on. You think you can just erase us after everything we did for you? He scoffed. Well, guess what? Life doesn't work that way. You owe us. The voicemail ended abruptly. A second later, a text popped up. Your father is very disappointed in you, Abigail. We need to talk. Call us. I stared at the message, my chest tight, disappointed. They abandoned me at a train station, vanished from my life, and now I had disappointed them? The anger was white-hot. They hadn't changed, not one bit. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers tightening around my phone as I swallowed the lump in my throat. The part of me that was still 16, standing alone on that train platform, wanted to scream. But I wasn't 16 anymore. I wasn't lost. I wasn't alone. And I wasn't going to run this time. I opened my messages and typed out a response to Vivian. Tomorrow, Denny's on 5th, 7 a.m. Come alone or don't come at all. I hit send, then set my phone down and looked back out at the city. Tomorrow morning, I would see my sister for the first time in 20 years. And this time, I wasn't afraid. I was already at Denny's when Vivian walked in, eyes scanning nervously for me. She looked almost the same high cheekbones, same tense shoulders. But the years had added something new. The slight slump in her posture, the lines at the corners of her mouth. She had always been the perfect daughter, the one who obeyed, who smoothed things over, who played along. But now, she looked like someone carrying too many secrets. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then, she made her way over, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Hey, Abby! I took a slow sip of my coffee before answering. I'm not Abby anymore. I'm Abigail. Her smile faltered. Right. Sorry. She slid into the booth across from me, fingers fidgeting with the laminated menu. It's been a long time, she said. I didn't reply. I just watched her, waiting for the real reason she was here. She sighed, setting the menu down. You look good. I raised an eyebrow. And you look nervous. Vivian let out a quiet laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. Yeah, well, this is complicated. No, Viv. It's actually pretty simple. I leaned forward. You want something, just say it. Her lips pressed together. Then she exhaled. Mom and Dad, they're struggling. There it was. She didn't wait for me to respond. The words spilled out, rehearsed, practiced. Dad lost a lot of money gambling. Mom racked up debt. They're drowning, Abigail. The house is in foreclosure. I clenched my jaw, staring at her. They need help, she continued. They need you. I let out a slow, deliberate breath. I don't owe them a damn thing. Vivian flinched. I'm not asking you to forgive them. She swallowed. I just want you to listen. My fingers tightened around my coffee cup. The audacity of it. Listen. Had anyone listened to me when I was 16, standing alone at that train station? Had anyone listened when I was shivering in the rain because character building was more important than basic decency? I leaned back against the booth, my stomach twisting with something between rage and exhaustion. They didn't just make a mistake, Viv, I said, my voice like steel. They left me at a train station, on purpose. She winced. They came back. An hour later, I cut in. And whose fault was that? The air between us cracked, like a mirror splitting down the middle. Years of silence, of unspoken words, of pretending it hadn't been that bad. Vivian blinked rapidly, her fingers twisting in her lap. They thought you'd come home. They thought you'd... She trailed off, her voice breaking. They thought I'd crawl back, I finished for her. Like I always did. She stared at the table, her breathing shallow. I shook my head. I'm not their daughter anymore, Vivian. I haven't been for a long time. Her shoulders trembled, but I didn't soften. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a few bills, and dropped them onto the table. If they try to contact me again, I won't be so polite. Vivian stayed seated, staring at the table. I walked away without looking back. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning, I buried myself in work, trying to push the conversation with Vivian out of my mind. It had left a sour taste in my mouth, but I had no intention of letting it control my day. The past was the past, and I had built something real, something no one, not even them, could take away from me. Or so I thought. A sharp knock at my office door interrupted my focus. Jenny, my assistant, stood in the doorway, her face tight with something between discomfort and hesitation. Hey, I think you should see this. She stepped in, phone in hand, hesitating before passing it to me. I frowned and took it. The screen was open to Facebook. My breath caught in my throat as I read the words on the screen. Our daughter abandoned us in our old age after everything we sacrificed for her. Below it, another post. We raised her to be strong, and this is how she repays us? Heartless. I felt a slow, burning heat creep up my neck. They were painting themselves as victims, as if they were the ones who had suffered. There were hundreds of comments, strangers condemning me, people sharing the posts, some even tagging my company's page. I scrolled through the responses, my stomach twisting. Wow, I can't believe some kids treat their parents like this. What a disgrace. Ungrateful brat. I hope she rots alone. Money changes people. Shame on her. I slammed the phone down on my desk. Jenny shifted uncomfortably. I didn't want to show you, but it's spreading. Clients are seeing it. Some people have even left bad reviews on Haven Development's page, calling you a cold-hearted fraud. My pulse pounded in my ears. This wasn't just a few Facebook posts. It was a full-scale attack. I took a slow, deep breath, forcing the tremor from my hands. Who else knows about this? Jenny hesitated. Some of the staff. A few of our bigger clients. I think some of them are waiting to see how you respond. I nodded slowly. Okay. Thanks, Jenny. I'll handle it. The moment she left, I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Vivian answered on the third ring. Abby? Her voice was wary. My grip tightened around the phone. Did you know about this? A long silence stretched between us. Finally, she exhaled. I told them not to, but they're desperate, Abby. I let out a humorless laugh. Desperate people don't destroy their own children. They just want help, Vivian tried. They think this is the only way to get through to you. I scoffed. By lying? By turning strangers against me? Vivian didn't answer. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. I should have known better than to think they'd change. I hung up before she could say anything else. A text came through immediately after. You ungrateful brat. Take that post down. I stared at the words on the screen, a slow, dangerous calm settling over me. Then I opened my own social media account and started typing. Some people rewrite history to escape accountability. I won't let them. I hit post and tossed my phone onto my desk. They wanted a fight? Fine. Let's fight. I thought a few Facebook posts were bad enough. Then they showed up at my office. It had been a long week of damage control, monitoring our company's social media, reassuring clients that my personal life had no bearing on our work, and ignoring the countless messages from distant relatives who suddenly had opinions about a story they knew nothing about. I was running on little sleep, fueled by caffeine and sheer willpower, when the intercom on my desk crackled to life. Abigail. Jenny's voice sounded hesitant. There's an elderly couple here insisting they need to see you. I froze. The coffee in my hand suddenly tasted bitter. Did they give their names? I asked, even though I already knew. Jenny sighed. They said they're your parents. I exhaled sharply, forcing my expression into something neutral. Tell them I'm in a meeting. A pause. Then, they're making a scene. Of course they were. I set my cup down, pushed back my chair, and made my way to the lobby. The moment I stepped through the doors, I spotted them. Celeste was in full performance mode, dabbing at non-existent tears with a crumpled tissue. Magnus stood beside her, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room like he was searching for a fight. The second she saw me, Celeste's face crumpled. My baby, she wailed, loud enough to make heads turn. You won't even talk to your own mother? I stopped mid-step, jaw tightening. Around us, employees whispered. A few pulled out their phones, recording, as if this were some reality show drama unfolding in real time. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. Magnus's expression twisted into a sneer. You've turned into one of those people, huh? The kind who forgets where they came from? I didn't flinch. Leave, now! Celeste let out a choked sob, clutching her chest like she was moments away from collapsing. I gave birth to you, Abigail. I raised you. And now you treat us like we're nothing? I clenched my fists. You are nothing to me! A collective gasp rippled through the lobby. For a moment, there was silence. Then Magnus's face turned red. You think your money makes you better than us? His voice was loud now, meant to draw attention. Celeste dropped to her knees, actually dropped to her knees, and started crying into her hands. All we wanted was to see you, to talk to you. But you've become so cruel. A wave of murmurs spread through the crowd. Some people looked uncomfortable, others looked entertained. I had had enough. I stepped forward, lowering my voice to a deadly calm. If you don't leave right now, I will have security remove you. Magnus took a slow step toward me, his voice dropping to something low and venomous. You owe us, Abigail. We made you who you are. Celeste's sobbing suddenly stopped. She lifted her face, her eyes gleaming with something colder than grief. You can't erase us, sweetheart. You'll always be our daughter. I exhaled sharply, then turned to the security guard standing nearby. Escort them out. Magnus let out a bitter laugh. You're going to regret this. Celeste stood up, smoothing her dress like nothing had happened. Poor thing, she murmured, just loud enough for those nearby to hear. Too much money, not enough heart. I watched as security led them out, their voices echoing through the glass doors. I should have known they weren't finished. This was just the beginning. The next day, I got a letter from a lawyer. Jenny placed the thick envelope on my desk, her brows furrowed. This came by courier. It's from a law firm. I didn't move right away. I just stared at it, an odd sense of déjà vu washing over me. Another escalation, another attempt to drag me back into the mess I had spent years escaping. Slowly, I picked it up, tearing the top open. The moment my eyes skimmed the first few lines, my pulse pounded. My parents were filing a legal claim against me. Under filial responsibility laws. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Unbelievable. They were actually trying to force me, legally force me, to support them financially. The same people who had left me at a train station at 16, who had ignored me for 2 decades, were now demanding that I pay for their mistakes. I dropped the letter onto my desk and pinched the bridge of my nose. Jenny hovered near the doorway. "You okay?" I exhaled through my nose. "Call David. I need to talk to my lawyer." She nodded and disappeared. Minutes later, I was pacing my office, phone pressed against my ear as David's calm voice came through. "Well," he said after I finished reading him the letter, "technically, in some states, they might have a case." I stopped pacing. "You're telling me they can abandon me as a kid, but now I owe them money." He sighed. "It's rare, but some courts uphold these kinds of cases, depending on the circumstances. Texas doesn't have strict filial responsibility laws, but if they push hard enough, they could still make your life hell." I pressed a hand against my forehead. "Unbelievable." "They're hoping you'll settle," David said, "that you'll just give them what they want, so they don't drag your name through a drawn-out court battle." I laughed bitterly. "Then they don't know me at all." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. My mother's name flashed across the screen. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something in me snapped, and before I could stop myself, I hit accept. "What do you want?" My voice was flat. Celeste's voice came through, syrupy sweet. "Abigail, sweetheart, we just want to work something out. We wouldn't have to do this if you'd just help us." I clenched my jaw. "Help you?" My voice was cold. "After what you did to me?" She let out a dramatic sigh, like I was being unreasonable. "Honey, that was so long ago. Families fight. Parents make mistakes. But we're still your parents, and we're in trouble." I felt my grip tighten around the phone. "You're not my parents. You lost that right the day you drove away." There was a pause. Then her voice hardened. "If you fight us, we'll take this all the way to court. Do you really want that embarrassment?" I almost laughed at the irony. She thought she could threaten me with embarrassment. I felt my anger crystallize into something sharp, something unbreakable. "Try me," I said, voice steady. Then I hung up. I stood there for a long moment, my heartbeat steady. Not from fear, but rage. They thought they could break me. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Then they went after my business. I should have expected it. After the lawsuit, after the social media spectacle, after every desperate attempt to claw their way back into my life, of course they wouldn't stop there. But knowing something is coming doesn't make it sting any less when it finally hits. I was at my desk, flipping through paperwork, when Jenny knocked and peeked inside, her expression uneasy. "You might want to check your email," she said carefully. I raised an eyebrow but grabbed my phone. The moment I saw the subject line, my stomach twisted. "Concerning allegations against you." I clicked the email open. "Abigail, I hope this isn't true, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. We've received multiple anonymous messages claiming you have a history of financial misconduct, particularly in dealings with your family. They allege you stole money, abandoned your responsibilities, and have a track record of deceit. We value our professional relationship, but given the nature of these claims, we need some clarification. The sender was one of our biggest investors." I scrolled further down, my pulse pounding. Attached were screenshots of emails from fake accounts, all repeating the same story. That I had stolen money from my own parents. That I had built my company off their sacrifices. That I was nothing but a liar, a fraud. I exhaled sharply and tossed my phone onto my desk. My hands clenched into fists. Jenny hovered near the door. "What's going on?" I forced myself to take a slow breath. "They're trying to destroy me." Her brow furrowed. "Who?" I grabbed my phone and started dialing. Who do you think? 15 minutes later, I was on the phone with one of my business partners. He hesitated before speaking. Look, Abigail, I don't want to believe this, but these messages, there's a lot of them. Do you know where they're coming from? I asked, voice clipped. Silence. Then, reluctantly, some of the accounts were traced back to an IP linked to your parents. I closed my eyes, gripping the edge of my desk. They had crossed the line. For years, they had tried to manipulate me with guilt. When that failed, they tried to humiliate me publicly. And now, they were coming for everything I had built. They had made a mistake. Because this was war. I called an emergency meeting with my PR team. They sat across from me, their faces serious. One of them cleared his throat. Our recommendation? Don't engage publicly. Stay quiet. Let this blow over. No, I said firmly. I'm not staying quiet, not this time. I turned to my laptop, my fingers moving across the keyboard as I drafted my own statement. For years, I suffered at the hands of manipulative parents. When I walked away, I did so to protect myself. Now, after 20 years, they are trying to destroy my livelihood. I will not let them. I hit post. Let them come for me. I wasn't scared anymore. Hours later, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Magnus. You ungrateful brat. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing out a final message. If you continue, I will take legal action. This is your last chance. I hit send. No response. But I knew. They wouldn't stop. They wanted war? Fine. I'd give them one. The next day, I received a court summons. Jenny walked into my office, her face pale as she placed a thick envelope on my desk. It's from a law firm, she said carefully. I already knew who it was from. I took the envelope, tearing it open with slow, deliberate movements. The bold, official text at the top confirmed my suspicions. Magnus and Celeste Holloway versus Abigail Holloway, the grounds? Neglecting filial responsibilities under state law. A bitter laugh escaped me. So this was their last move. When emotional blackmail, public humiliation, and direct sabotage hadn't worked, they resorted to the legal system. Jenny lingered in the doorway. What do you want to do? I exhaled sharply and reached for my phone. Call David. Tell him I'm on my way. David sat across from me in his office, the lawsuit spread out on the polished oak desk between us. He skimmed the pages, shaking his head. They have a weak case, he said finally, looking up. Texas doesn't enforce strict filial responsibility laws, but if they get enough publicity, it could hurt your business. I clenched my fists. Then we make it public on our terms. David raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? I nodded. My decision already made. I've played defense long enough. It's time for people to know exactly who they are. That night, I crafted my statement. I didn't hold back. I told the truth, the full truth, about my parents. About the lessons they forced on me. About the night they left me at a train station at 16 and never came back. About how they resurfaced only when they needed something. By morning, the post had gone viral. The tide turned almost immediately. The same strangers who had once condemned me for being ungrateful were now disgusted by my parents' actions. Comments flooded in, filled with outrage on my behalf. This is beyond cruel. What kind of parents abandon their own child and then try to cash in 20 years later? I believed them at first. But now? They deserve whatever's coming to them. Suing your own kid after leaving them homeless? Unbelievable. The shift in public opinion was swift. They had lost control of the narrative. 3 days later, Vivian called me. Her voice was strained, barely above a whisper. They lost everything, Abby. I sat in my car, staring at the city skyline. That's on them. She let out a shaky breath. They're saying it's your fault. Of course they were. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. No, Vivian, it's their fault. Every choice they made led them here. For once, she didn't argue. A week later, I drove past my childhood home. A for sale sign sat in the yard. The place looked smaller than I remembered, almost lifeless. I expected to feel some sense of victory, some kind of triumph, but all I felt was relief. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need validation. They no longer had power over me. And that was enough. For the first time in 20 years, I finally felt free. No weight on my shoulders, no knots in my stomach, no lingering fear of when they would show up next, trying to drag me back into the past I had fought so hard to escape. I was home. Austin stretched out beneath my balcony, bathed in golden evening light. A warm breeze brushed against my skin as I sat with my legs tucked under me, a glass of wine in hand. The chaos had finally settled, leaving behind only silence. But even peace, it seemed, had one final test. A knock at my door shattered the quiet. I knew before I even stood who it was. I opened it to find Vivian, her eyes swollen, her expression exhausted. "Abby." Her voice cracked. "Please." I didn't move. "They have nowhere to go," she whispered. "Dad's drinking more than ever. Mom keeps saying they just need one more chance. They're still our parents." I gripped the doorframe, my heart heavy. She still didn't get it. "They made their choice," I said evenly. Vivian's face crumpled. "How can you be so—" "So what?" I cut in. "Cold, heartless, selfish?" Tears spilled over her lashes. "I just don't want to lose my sister over this." I inhaled sharply, my throat tight. "You didn't lose me," I said quietly. "They did." Vivian let out a choked sob, her hands trembling as she wiped at her face. "They just need—" I shook my head. "I'm not responsible for fixing what they broke." Her shoulders slumped. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stepped back. "Take care of yourself, Viv." Then I shut the door. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. An hour later, I sat on my balcony again, watching the sun dip below the skyline. For years, their voices had echoed in my head, shaping my choices even in their absence. The guilt, the shame, the what-ifs. But now, just silence, and it was beautiful. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I reached Aunt Marigold, the only real family I had ever had. I typed out a message. "Dinner this weekend? My treat." Her response came almost instantly. "Finally! I've been waiting for you to ask. Mexican or Italian?" A small smile touched my lips. "Mexican, extra margaritas." I took a deep breath, then went to my call log. My parents' numbers stared back at me like ghosts refusing to rest. Slowly, I hit block. No more second chances. No more manipulations. No more guilt. I walked inside and closed the door behind me. I wasn't running anymore. I was free. Before we end this story, let me leave you with something to think about. For years, I carried the weight of a past I never asked for. I let guilt, obligation, and the fear of being seen as ungrateful dictate my choices. But here's what I've learned. Family isn't about blood, it's about who truly stands by you. Sometimes the people who should love us the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. And when that happens, you have two choices. Let it define you, or let it go. Walking away doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. Setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's survival. And choosing yourself after years of being told you don't matter? That's liberation. So if you've ever been made to feel guilty for choosing peace over toxicity, let me tell you this. You don't owe anyone your suffering just because they share your DNA. You deserve to be free. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from a toxic relationship, family or otherwise? How did it change you? Drop a 1 in the comments if this story resonated with you, or let me know where you're watching from. And if you didn't like this video, tell me why. I appreciate all perspectives. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Your support means everything, and I can't wait to share more with you soon. Until next time, choose yourself, always.